before history had a name, before the first kingdom rose from the dust, before the oldest temples carved into stone. There may have been another world entirely, a world swallowed by flood, erased by fire, and buried beneath thousands of years of silence. Across every continent, archaeologists continue to uncover impossible ruins, forgotten cities, and artifacts that refuse to fit the timeline we've accepted for generations. Some call them myths, others call them mistakes. But what if they are memories? Memories of civilizations so ancient that almost every trace of their existence was deliberately or naturally erased. Tonight, we begin a journey into the oldest and most mysterious civilizations ever connected to the world before the Great Flood. And the deeper we travel into humanity's forgotten past, the more unsettling one question becomes. Were we truly the first civilization to inherit this earth? Long before the pyramids of Egypt pierced the desert sky. Long before Mesopotamia became the cradle of recorded civilization. There existed a place so ancient that even modern archaeology struggles to explain how it was ever built. Hidden among the rolling hills of southeastern Anatolia stands a circle of massive stone pillars unlike anything else on Earth. Today, we know it as Göbekli Tepe. When the site was first surveyed during the 20th century, few believed it held anything extraordinary. The scattered stones were dismissed as medieval graves or natural rock formations. Nothing about the lonely hill hinted that beneath its surface rested one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever made. Everything changed when excavations began. Layer after layer of earth revealed enormous limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons each. Many stood over 5 meters tall. Every surface was carved with astonishing precision. Foxes, vultures, lions, wild boars, snakes, spiders, cranes, and creatures whose meanings remain unknown emerged from the stone as though frozen in time. The most astonishing part was not their beauty, it was their age. Radiocarbon dating placed the earliest structures at nearly 12,000 years old, thousands of years older than Stonehenge, older than the Egyptian pyramids, older than the invention of writing, metalworking, or even agriculture according to conventional history. That discovery created a problem no one expected. Who built such a monument? According to traditional timelines, people living 12,000 years ago were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers. They had no permanent cities, no organized governments, no advanced engineering. Yet somehow they quarried enormous blocks of limestone, transported them across uneven terrain, carved intricate reliefs, and arranged everything with remarkable geometric precision. Nothing about the site fit the accepted story. Even stranger was what archaeologists did not find. There were no houses, no kitchens, no streets, no workshops, no signs that thousands of people had actually lived there. It was as though an enormous ceremonial complex had been constructed by people who vanished as soon as their work was complete. Some researchers believe Göbekli Tepe served as the world's first temple. Others suggest it was an astronomical observatory where ancient priests watched the movements of the heavens. A few have proposed something even more unsettling. Perhaps this was a place built by survivors. Many ancient cultures preserve memories of a catastrophic flood that destroyed an earlier world. From Mesopotamia to India, from Greece to Central America, stories describe a civilization wiped away by overwhelming waters while only a handful escaped to begin again. Could Göbekli Tepe have been one of the first monuments raised after that disaster? Its builders may have carried memories from a forgotten age, preserving fragments of knowledge that modern history no longer remembers. The layout itself deepens the mystery. The massive circular enclosures appear carefully planned around central pillars, shaped almost like giant human figures. Their arms are carved along the sides. Their hands rest near decorated belts, yet they have no faces. Some believe these pillars represent gods. Others think they symbolize ancestors. Another theory suggests they depict beings remembered from a civilization that existed before recorded history itself. Then there is the deliberate burial, perhaps the greatest mystery of all. Around 10,000 years ago, long after construction had finished, someone intentionally buried the entire complex beneath thousands of tons of stone, soil, and debris. Not destroyed, not abandoned, buried. Every enclosure was carefully filled until almost nothing remained visible above the ground. Imagine the effort required. It would have taken generations to complete such a task. Why would anyone deliberately hide one of the greatest monuments ever built? Was it an act of preservation? A sacred ritual? Or were they trying to ensure something beneath those stones would never again be seen? Even today, only a small fraction of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. Ground-penetrating surveys indicate dozens of additional structures still sleep beneath the hillside. Entire sections remain untouched, protected by the very earth that concealed them for thousands of years. Each new excavation raises more questions than answers. Every carved animal seems placed with deliberate intention. Every pillar follows mathematical relationships that appear surprisingly sophisticated. Some researchers even suggest the alignments may correspond with ancient constellations visible at the end of the last ice age, though this remains heavily debated. Whether those theories prove correct or not, one fact cannot be ignored. Göbekli Tepe should not exist according to everything we thought we knew about early civilization. If people possessed the knowledge, organization, and engineering required to build monuments like this 12,000 years ago, then perhaps civilization did not begin where history says it did. Perhaps it began much earlier. Perhaps what we call the dawn of civilization is actually its second sunrise. As the winds continue to sweep across those ancient stones, they whisper a silent reminder that history is often written by what survives, not by what was lost. And if the world's oldest known monument already challenges everything we've been taught about our beginnings, imagine what still lies buried beneath deserts, jungles, mountains, and oceans, waiting for someone to uncover the next forgotten chapter of humanity's deepest past. Before the first cities carved their names into stone, before kings ruled behind towering walls, there were people who looked toward the sea, believing that beyond the horizon stood the greatest civilization the world had ever known. They called it Atlantis. For thousands of years, it has been dismissed as nothing more than a legend, a philosopher's imagination, a moral story wrapped in fantasy. Yet every generation uncovers discoveries that make one uncomfortable question impossible to ignore. What if Atlantis wasn't a myth at all? What if it was the memory of a civilization that truly existed before the world was changed forever? The only surviving written description comes from the Greek philosopher Plato, who claimed the story had been passed down through Egyptian priests. According to his account, Atlantis existed long before his own time. It was a vast island kingdom located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now know as the Strait of Gibraltar. Unlike the kingdoms of the ancient Mediterranean, Atlantis was described as astonishingly advanced. Its cities were carefully planned with concentric rings of land and water. Massive canals connected every district. Harbors welcomed fleets of powerful ships. Bridges crossed perfectly engineered waterways, while gleaming temples rose above the capital like monuments to a forgotten age. For centuries, historians dismissed these descriptions as symbolic. Plato, they argued, had invented Atlantis simply to teach philosophical lessons about pride and corruption. But the deeper archaeologists explored ancient civilizations around the world, the stranger that explanation became. Every major culture seemed to remember a great flood. The Sumerians wrote of a catastrophic deluge that nearly erased humanity. Ancient Egyptians spoke of a lost age ruled before the dynasties. Indian texts described entire kingdoms swallowed beneath the sea. The Maya preserved stories of previous worlds destroyed before the present one. Even cultures separated by thousands of kilometers carried nearly identical memories of an earlier civilization consumed by overwhelming waters. How could so many civilizations preserve the same story if no event had inspired it? Some researchers believe these flood legends preserve distorted memories of the end of the last ice age. Around 12,000 years ago, enormous glaciers covering much of the northern hemisphere began melting rapidly. Sea levels rose dramatically over thousands of years. Coastlines disappeared. River valleys flooded. Entire regions that had once supported human settlements vanished beneath expanding oceans. If sophisticated coastal civilizations existed before those rising seas, almost every trace of them would now rest hundreds of feet underwater. Perhaps we have been searching in the wrong places all along. One discovery after another continues fueling that possibility. Near the island of Bimini in the Bahamas lies an enormous formation known as the Bimini Road. Massive limestone blocks stretch beneath shallow water in long, remarkably straight formations. Some geologists argue they formed naturally. Others believe their arrangement resembles the foundations of an ancient harbor or seawall. Farther west, submerged structures off the coast of Cuba have sparked even greater debate. Sonar surveys reveal geometric formations resting deep beneath the ocean surface. Some appear almost pyramid-like. Others resemble carefully arranged buildings. Because of their depth, certain estimates suggest these structures would have been above sea level only before the end of the Ice Age. No conclusion has ever been universally accepted. The mystery remains. Then there is Yonaguni. Off the coast of Japan, divers discovered enormous underwater terraces cut into sharp angles. Staircases descend into the sea. Flat platforms stretch across the rock. Massive vertical faces rise almost perfectly straight from the ocean floor. To some scientists, they represent unusual but entirely natural geological formations. To others, they appear astonishingly artificial. If human hands shaped even part of the monument, it would dramatically rewrite the history of early civilization. But perhaps the most intriguing clues come not from underwater ruins, but from ancient engineering itself. How did civilizations separated by oceans develop strikingly similar knowledge? Monumental stone architecture, sophisticated astronomical alignments, mathematical precision, legends describing teachers who arrived after a great flood, bringing agriculture, astronomy, writing, and laws to scattered survivors. Again and again, the pattern repeats. It is almost as though many civilizations believed they inherited fragments of knowledge from an older world. Plato described Atlantis as wealthy beyond imagination, powered by remarkable engineering, governed by skilled rulers, and filled with magnificent temples covered in shining metals. While some details may be exaggerated through centuries of storytelling, perhaps the heart of the story preserves something real. Not an impossible super-civilization, not flying machines or futuristic technology, but a highly organized maritime culture whose achievements far exceeded what we expect from that distant age. Imagine enormous ports now buried beneath continental shelves, libraries dissolved beneath seawater, observatories collapsed beneath earthquakes, roads hidden under layers of coral, generation after generation passing down fading memories until history transformed fact into myth. Then came the final catastrophe. According to Plato, Atlantis disappeared in a single terrible day and night. Earthquakes shook the land. The sea swallowed entire cities. Nothing remained except open water. Modern geology reminds us that nature is capable of astonishing violence. Volcanic eruptions, mega tsunamis, rapid sea level rise, massive earthquakes capable of permanently reshaping coastlines. History has witnessed such disasters before. Perhaps prehistory experienced one on an unimaginable scale. Today, thousands of square kilometers of continental shelf remain almost completely unexplored. Much of the ancient coastline that existed during the last ice age now lies beneath oceans around the world. Every year, underwater archaeology discovers forgotten settlements once believed impossible. Stone tools, ancient walls, submerged villages, evidence that humanity occupied lands long before they disappeared beneath rising seas. No discovery has proven Atlantis existed, but neither has anyone proven it could not. The deeper we search beneath the oceans, the more we realize how little of our submerged past has actually been explored. Perhaps Atlantis is not waiting to be found exactly as Plato described. Perhaps its true legacy survives scattered across dozens of drowned coastlines, broken into fragments by time, preserved beneath layers of sand and silence. Because history often survives in unexpected ways. Sometimes as ruins, sometimes as legends, and sometimes as stories repeated so consistently across civilizations that they refuse to disappear. If Atlantis was ever real, its greatest achievement may not have been its magnificent cities. It may have been leaving behind a single unforgettable memory. A warning that even the greatest civilization on Earth can vanish beneath the waves, leaving future generations to wonder whether it ever existed at all. Darkness has a way of preserving secrets. Deserts erase them. Jungles swallow them. Oceans hide them beneath endless silence. But sometimes, buried beneath ordinary hills, archaeologists uncover something so old that every history book suddenly feels incomplete. Few discoveries have done that more dramatically than the mysterious civilization we now call the Ubaid. They left no grand empire recorded in legend, no famous kings, no epic battles. Yet without them, everything we think we know about civilization may have begun far differently than anyone imagined. Thousands of years before the first pharaoh ruled Egypt, before Babylon rose above the plains, before the pyramids, ziggurats, or monumental temples dominated the landscape. Southern Mesopotamia was already changing. Around 7,000 years ago, while much of the world still lived in scattered farming communities, the people of the Ubaid culture began building something extraordinary. Permanent settlements, large communal buildings, organized irrigation systems, trade routes stretching hundreds of kilometers, and perhaps most importantly, the earliest foundations of what would eventually become civilization itself. At first glance, their villages seem simple. Mud brick houses, storage rooms, courtyards, small workshops. Nothing about them appears particularly mysterious. But archaeology often reveals its greatest surprises beneath the surface. Excavations across Iraq, Kuwait, Syria, Iran, and parts of the Arabian Gulf uncovered settlements sharing nearly identical architecture despite being separated by vast distances. Pottery styles matched with remarkable consistency. Building techniques followed common patterns. Religious symbols repeated again and again. This was not a collection of isolated villages. It was a connected civilization, a network, a culture spreading ideas across an enormous region long before history claimed such organization should have existed. Then came the figurines. Small clay statues unlike anything from later Mesopotamian civilizations. Most depict human bodies with strangely elongated skulls, large almond-shaped eyes, thin mouths, long necks. Some appear to cradle infants with the very same unusual features. For decades, archaeologists debated their meaning. Were they gods? Priests wearing ceremonial masks? Stylized artistic traditions? Or representations of people remembered from an even older age? The answer remains uncertain. Yet these strange figures continue appearing across multiple Ubaid settlements, separated by hundreds of kilometers. Whatever they represented clearly held profound importance. Some researchers dismiss the elongated heads as symbolic art. Others point out that intentional skull modification appeared in various ancient cultures throughout history. But another possibility lingers quietly in the background. Perhaps these statues preserved the memory of individuals whose appearance truly differed from later populations. Not supernatural beings, not visitors from another world, simply people whose identity faded into myth as generations passed. The mystery deepens when we examine their engineering. Southern Mesopotamia was never an easy place to settle. The rivers flooded unpredictably. The climate shifted constantly. Without careful planning, agriculture would fail. Yet the Ubaid transformed marshlands into productive farmland through remarkably sophisticated irrigation canals. Water flowed where they wanted. Fields remained fertile. Communities expanded. Food surpluses appeared. These innovations would eventually make possible cities like Ur, Eridu, Uruk, and eventually Babylon. But someone had to begin that transformation. Someone had to discover how to master the rivers. Perhaps it was the Ubaid, or perhaps they inherited knowledge from people who came before them. Ancient Mesopotamian tradition repeatedly speaks of mysterious sages known as the Apkallu, wise beings said to have emerged after a great flood. Teachers who introduced writing, architecture, agriculture, astronomy, and law. Historians generally interpret these stories as mythology. Yet myths often preserve echoes of forgotten realities. Could memories of the Ubaid people have evolved into legends of divine teachers? Or were both traditions remembering an even earlier civilization lost beneath time itself? One site continues drawing particular attention. Eridu, often described as the oldest city in Mesopotamian tradition. Beneath its famous temple, archaeologists discovered layer after layer of older construction. Each generation rebuilt directly upon the remains of the previous one. Temple beneath temple. Foundation beneath foundation. Civilization stacked like forgotten memories buried under thousands of years. The deepest levels belong to the Ubaid period. Even then, the builders were not creating randomly. They followed careful plans, sacred orientations, architectural traditions already fully developed. Which raises an uncomfortable question. How long had those traditions existed before the earliest surviving structures? Civilizations rarely appear fully formed. Knowledge accumulates gradually across generations. If the earliest Ubaid settlements already possessed advanced irrigation, organized religion, specialized craftsmanship, and long-distance trade, then those achievements must have evolved somewhere before archaeology can currently see. That missing chapter remains hidden, perhaps beneath river sediments deposited by thousands of years of flooding, perhaps beneath modern cities impossible to excavate, or perhaps beneath the waters of the Persian Gulf itself. During the last ice age, much of today's Gulf was dry land, a vast, fertile basin crossed by rivers and inhabited by humans. As sea levels rose after the glaciers melted, those landscapes disappeared beneath the expanding ocean. Entire communities may still rest below those waters, untouched since prehistory. Some researchers have suggested this drowned landscape may even preserve the memories behind later stories of paradise gardens and flood legends. It is only a hypothesis, but it reminds us how much of humanity's earliest history may remain underwater. The Ubaid themselves eventually faded. Their culture transformed. New cities emerged. Writing appeared. Kings claimed power. Empires rose. History officially began. Yet beneath every great Mesopotamian civilization lies their quiet foundation. They did not build the largest monuments. They left behind no surviving literature. Most people have never heard their name, and perhaps that is what makes them so fascinating. Sometimes the greatest civilizations are not those remembered by history. Sometimes they are the ones history quietly stands upon. Every brick laid in ancient Sumer, every canal feeding the first cities, every temple reaching toward the heavens, may trace its origins back to people whose names disappeared thousands of years before writing could preserve them. As archaeologists continue digging deeper beneath Mesopotamia's oldest settlements, one truth becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. Civilization did not simply appear overnight. It inherited. It learned. It remembered. And somewhere beneath the mud, beneath forgotten rivers, beneath cities built upon cities, the earliest chapters of humanity's story are still waiting to be uncovered. Because the deeper we dig into the world's oldest civilizations, the more we discover that every beginning may actually be the continuation of something even older. Before the first empires carved their victories into stone, before Egypt crowned its pharaohs, before the kings of Sumer claimed dominion over the fertile plains, there may have existed a city so ancient that later civilizations remembered it not as history, but as the place where civilization itself was born. Its name was Eridu. Today, only low mounds of weathered earth remain beneath the blazing Iraqi sun. But hidden beneath those layers lies a story that forces us to ask an unsettling question. What if the first city on Earth was not truly the first, but the last surviving memory of a civilization that came before the flood? The ancient Sumerians never described Eridu as an ordinary settlement. Their oldest texts called it the very first city established after kingship descended from heaven. That phrase has puzzled historians for generations. Was it merely poetic language? Or were they preserving a memory of an older world whose knowledge somehow survived a catastrophe? Unlike later cities built for conquest, Eridu appears to have begun with purpose rather than power. Archaeologists digging into the site uncovered layer after layer of construction. Each generation carefully built directly upon the foundations of the previous one. Temples replaced older temples. Floors covered earlier floors. Walls enclosed forgotten walls. The deeper the excavations reached, the older the city became. Eventually, the researchers uncovered some of the earliest monumental religious architecture ever found. And yet something felt strangely complete. The builders were not experimenting. They already understood symmetry. They already understood sacred orientation. They already possessed construction techniques that should have required centuries of gradual development. Civilizations usually evolve through countless small steps. Eridu seems to emerge with many of those steps already behind it. Its oldest temple was surprisingly modest, little more than a simple shrine constructed from mud brick. But generation after generation, the shrine expanded. New chambers appeared. Platforms grew taller. Walls became thicker. The entire structure transformed into a sacred complex that remained important for thousands of years. This continuity is remarkable. Empires collapsed. Dynasties vanished. Languages changed. Yet the sacred heart of Eridu endured. Almost as though every civilization that followed believed this place possessed a significance older than themselves. The city was dedicated to Enki, the mysterious deity associated with wisdom, fresh water, creation, and hidden knowledge. Unlike many later gods of war and conquest, Enki was remembered as a teacher, a guide, a keeper of forgotten secrets. Ancient texts describe him as emerging from the deep waters known as the Abzu, bringing humanity knowledge of agriculture, architecture, mathematics, writing, and civilization itself. Modern scholars generally interpret these stories symbolically. But symbols often preserve memories. Why was wisdom connected with water? Why did so many ancient traditions claim knowledge emerged after a great flood? Perhaps because those stories were born from survivors. The geography of Eridu only deepens the mystery. Today it stands in dry desert, surrounded by endless dust. Yet thousands of years ago, the region looked very different. Freshwater marshes stretched across southern Mesopotamia. Channels flowed toward the Persian Gulf. Fish were abundant. Birds filled the wetlands. Life flourished. Some researchers believe this fertile landscape may have inspired later traditions, describing paradise gardens where rivers divided into multiple branches. Others wonder whether these marshlands preserved memories of lands that disappeared beneath rising seas after the last ice age. If earlier settlements once occupied the now submerged basin of the Persian Gulf, Eridu may have become one of the first refuges built after the waters advanced inland. A city founded not at the beginning of civilization, but after its greatest disaster. Excavations have uncovered evidence of surprisingly organized urban planning, drainage systems, storage facilities, public buildings, specialized craftsmanship, trade goods arriving from distant regions, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, shells from the Gulf, copper transported across enormous distances. These discoveries reveal something extraordinary. Even during its earliest phases, Eridu was not isolated. It belonged to an expanding network connecting people separated by hundreds, perhaps even thousands of kilometers. Trade requires trust, communication, shared knowledge, organization. Such systems rarely appear overnight. They usually grow from traditions already established long before archaeology notices them. Then there are the king lists, one of the oldest historical documents ever discovered. According to these records, 8 kings ruled before a catastrophic flood swept across the world. Together, their reigns supposedly lasted tens of thousands of years. Modern historians view these enormous numbers as symbolic rather than literal. Yet the flood itself appears consistently. Always the flood. Always a dividing line separating one age from another. After it, everything changes. New dynasties begin. Cities rise again. History starts over. Could these exaggerated reign lengths represent forgotten generations compressed into legend? Or were ancient scribes attempting to preserve memories of a past already unimaginably distant even to them? The answers remain hidden beneath silence. One of Eridu's greatest mysteries is not what archaeologists found, but what they did not. There is no evidence of violent conquest during its earliest history. No massive defensive walls. No widespread destruction. The city seems to have developed peacefully, centered around ritual, water management, and cooperation. It almost feels less like the birthplace of empire, and more like the careful reconstruction of knowledge after unimaginable loss. Some researchers have noticed another curious pattern. Many later civilizations looked backward toward a golden age. Egypt remembered the followers of Horus. India spoke of earlier yugas. Mesoamerican traditions described previous worlds destroyed before the present one. Sumer looked back toward Eridu. Again and again, humanity's oldest civilizations pointed not toward progress, but toward memory, as though the greatest achievements belonged not to their future, but to a forgotten past. Today, wind moves quietly across the abandoned mound. The canals have dried. The marshes have retreated. The temples have collapsed into broken mud brick, barely distinguishable from the surrounding earth. Most travelers pass without realizing they stand upon one of the oldest sacred cities ever built. Yet beneath their feet remain countless unanswered questions. How much knowledge vanished before writing began? How many earlier settlements now rest beneath river sediment or beneath the waters of the Gulf? How many chapters of humanity's earliest story disappeared before anyone could record them? Perhaps Eridu truly was the first city. Or perhaps it was simply the first city to survive. The first beacon after darkness. The first place where scattered survivors gathered fragments of an older world and slowly rebuilt what had been lost. If that is true, then every civilization that followed inherited more than architecture, farming, and trade. They inherited memory. And somewhere beneath the oldest foundations of Eridu, buried beneath thousands of years of silence, that forgotten memory may still be waiting for someone willing to dig just a little deeper. before the first laws were written, before kings carved their victories into stone, before the names of Egypt, Sumer, or Babylon echoed across the ancient world. There existed a civilization so extraordinary that later generations believed its people had been taught directly by the gods. They built cities unlike anything humanity had seen before. Their streets followed perfect order. Their drains disappeared beneath the ground. Their measurements were astonishingly precise. And then, almost without warning, they vanished. Today we call them the Indus Valley Civilization. But the deeper archaeologists dig into their forgotten cities, the more one unsettling question refuses to disappear. Were these people the descendants of a world that existed before the Great Flood? When the ruins of Harappa were first noticed during the 19th century, no one realized what lay beneath the dusty plains. Workers dismantled ancient brick walls to build railway tracks, unaware that every brick they carried away had been shaped nearly 5,000 years earlier. Entire sections of one of history's greatest civilizations disappeared before archaeologists even understood what they were looking at. Then came Mohenjo-Daro. As excavations slowly peeled away layers of earth, an entire city emerged. Wide streets intersected one another at almost perfect right angles. Residential districts followed organized blocks. Public buildings stood beside carefully engineered water systems. Underground drainage channels ran beneath nearly every street, carrying wastewater away through covered brick tunnels. Even many modern cities struggled to achieve such sanitation until surprisingly recent times. Nothing about the discovery matched expectations. At the same time, Egypt was raising pyramids, and Mesopotamia was constructing towering ziggurats. The people of the Indus Valley had focused not on monuments to rulers, but on creating cities that functioned with astonishing efficiency. Homes contained private bathing areas. Many had wells supplying fresh water directly inside the house. Standardized bricks appeared everywhere, manufactured with almost identical proportions across settlements separated by hundreds of kilometers. This level of consistency suggests something remarkable. Shared engineering, shared mathematics, shared administration. A civilization connected by knowledge rather than conquest. Yet one mystery immediately stood out. Where were the kings? Archaeologists found no gigantic royal palaces, no extravagant tombs overflowing with treasure, no massive statues celebrating military victories. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, the Indus people seemed strangely uninterested in glorifying individual rulers. Instead, their greatest achievements served ordinary life. Clean water, organized streets, carefully planned neighborhoods. It was as though the civilization valued balance over power. Then there was the writing. Thousands of seals have been uncovered across Indus settlements. Each carries tiny symbols carved with extraordinary precision. Animals appear beside short inscriptions. Unicorn-like creatures, powerful bulls, elephants, tigers, strange composite beings unlike any living animal. Yet despite decades of study, no one has successfully deciphered the script. It remains one of archaeology's greatest unsolved mysteries. Imagine discovering an entire civilization whose people speak through thousands of messages, but whose language no one alive can understand. Every seal may contain names, stories, religious beliefs, scientific knowledge, trade records, or warnings from a forgotten world. We simply do not know. Some linguists believe the inscriptions are too short to decode. Others argue the language may belong to a family that completely disappeared thousands of years ago. Until a bilingual inscription is found, the voices of the Indus people remain locked behind symbols carved into stone. Then came another surprise. Their measurements. Researchers studying weights recovered from different cities discovered an astonishing level of standardization. Stone cubes produced hundreds of kilometers apart, matched almost perfectly. Builders followed consistent units across an enormous geographical area. Precision like this requires more than craftsmanship. It requires agreement, education, communication, some central system ensuring everyone measured the world in exactly the same way. How such remarkable organization developed remains uncertain. Ancient legends from the Indian subcontinent add another layer to the mystery. Many describe earlier ages before the present world, times when great cities flourished before enormous floods transformed the land. Some texts tell of wise survivors carrying sacred knowledge into a renewed age after catastrophe. Modern historians naturally separate mythology from archaeology, yet the similarities are difficult to ignore. Again and again, civilizations remember destruction followed by rebuilding, memory followed by renewal, loss followed by inheritance. Perhaps the greatest mystery is how the Indus civilization disappeared. There is no clear evidence of massive invasion, no widespread signs of violent destruction. Instead, cities slowly emptied, trade networks weakened, populations shifted. The great urban centers were gradually abandoned. Climate change, river movements, environmental pressures, these explanations likely played important roles, but none fully explain how one of Earth's most sophisticated civilizations dissolved so quietly. Some settlements simply faded into silence. As rivers changed course, communities moved away, leaving brick streets to the wind and dust. Centuries passed. Sand buried walls. Vegetation covered foundations. The memory of entire cities disappeared until modern excavation revealed them once again. Perhaps the most haunting place is the Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, a large rectangular pool built with extraordinary waterproof engineering. Brick walls sealed with natural bitumen, carefully designed stairways descending into still water. No one knows exactly how it was used. Ceremonial purification? Religious initiation? Community gatherings? Whatever its purpose, enormous effort was invested in constructing a place centered not on wealth or warfare, but on water. Water appears again, just as it does in so many civilizations connected with ancient flood traditions. Today, satellite technology continues revealing hundreds of previously unknown Indus settlements stretching across modern Pakistan and northwestern India. Many remain completely unexcavated beneath farmland and desert. Every new discovery expands the boundaries of a civilization already far larger than researchers once imagined. Yet despite decades of excavation, its greatest secret remains untouched. Its language sleeps silently on thousands of undeciphered seals. Its rulers remain anonymous. Its beliefs remain hidden. Its disappearance remains only partially understood. Perhaps one day a single inscription will finally unlock their forgotten world. Until then, the Indus Valley civilization stands as one of history's quietest giants. A civilization that mastered engineering without celebrating conquest, that organized vast cities without leaving behind the names of its leaders, that spoke through symbols no one can read, and perhaps, just perhaps, carried fragments of knowledge inherited from an age that existed before history drew its first breath. Because every excavation reminds us of one undeniable truth. The oldest civilizations rarely answer our questions. They simply replace them with older, deeper mysteries waiting beneath the next layer of Earth. The oldest stories ever told all begin the same way. Not with creation, but with destruction. A great flood. A world consumed by water. Civilizations erased almost overnight. Across Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, Mesoamerica, and even the distant Pacific Islands, cultures separated by thousands of miles, all remembered an overwhelming catastrophe that divided history into two ages. One before the flood, one after. Most historians explain these accounts as mythology inspired by local disasters. Yet beneath the Black Sea lies evidence of ancient coastlines. Beneath the Persian Gulf rest drowned landscapes once inhabited during the last ice age. Around the globe, rising seas transformed continents forever. But what if the flood stories remembered something even greater? What if somewhere beneath those forgotten waters once stood a civilization that became the blueprint for every civilization that followed? For centuries, one name has dominated that mystery: Atlantis. The moment the word is spoken, imagination takes over. Golden temples, crystal towers, impossible technology. A civilization swallowed by the sea. Yet behind centuries of fantasy lies a surprisingly serious question. Did the legend begin with a real place? The only detailed ancient account comes from the Greek philosopher Plato. Writing around 360 BC, he described an enormous island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, today's Strait of Gibraltar. According to his dialogues, Atlantis possessed magnificent cities, advanced engineering, organized government, powerful fleets, and extraordinary wealth. Its capital was unlike anything imagined before. Concentric rings of land and water surrounded a central palace. Massive canals connected the city to the sea. Bridges linked every district. Stone walls gleamed with white, black, and red rock. Temples shimmered with precious metals. At the center stood a sanctuary dedicated to Poseidon. It sounded almost too perfect. Most scholars have long argued that Plato invented Atlantis as a philosophical allegory. A fictional society meant to warn against pride, corruption, and the abuse of power. But archaeology has complicated that certainty. Because Plato was not describing random fantasy. Many details resemble real Bronze Age civilizations unknown during his own lifetime. His descriptions of advanced harbors, complex engineering, maritime trade, and monumental architecture closely resemble discoveries made thousands of years later. Most intriguing of all is the island of Thera, now called Santorini. Around 1600 BC, one of history's largest volcanic eruptions devastated the eastern Mediterranean. Entire settlements vanished beneath volcanic ash. Towering tsunamis struck surrounding coastlines. The flourishing Minoan civilization suffered catastrophic damage from which it never fully recovered. When archaeologists excavated Akrotiri on Santorini, they uncovered an astonishing sight. Multi-story buildings, sophisticated plumbing, colorful frescoes, wide streets, drainage systems, everything frozen beneath volcanic ash like a prehistoric Pompeii. The people had disappeared. The city had fallen silent. Its destruction happened so suddenly that it almost seemed impossible. Some researchers believe stories of this catastrophe echoed across generations before eventually reaching Plato centuries later. Yet Atlantis may represent something even older. Ancient sea levels were dramatically lower during the last ice age. More than 20,000 years ago, coastlines stretched far beyond their modern boundaries. Entire plains connected regions now separated by ocean. The Persian Gulf was largely dry land. Large portions of Southeast Asia formed one continuous continent. Communities flourished where today only waves remain. As glaciers melted, sea levels rose more than 100 meters. Coastlines vanished. River valleys flooded. Ancient settlements disappeared beneath expanding oceans. Modern underwater archaeology has already discovered submerged structures across several regions. Off India's western coast, near Dwarka, divers documented ancient stone formations beneath the sea. Near Japan, the Yonaguni Monument continues dividing researchers between natural geology and possible human construction. Along the coast of Cuba, sonar surveys revealed geometric formations resting hundreds of meters underwater. None have conclusively proven the existence of Atlantis. Yet each reminds us of an uncomfortable reality. Much of humanity's earliest history now lies beneath the sea. Perhaps the greatest mystery surrounding Atlantis is not where it was, but why every civilization seems to remember something similar. The Sumerians described antediluvian kings ruling before the flood. The Hebrews preserved Noah's account. Indian traditions speak of Manu surviving overwhelming waters. Greek mythology remembers Deucalion. Ancient Chinese records describe floods reshaping the world. Mayan traditions tell of previous creations destroyed before the present age. Different languages, different continents. One repeating memory. Water erased everything. Some researchers suggest these stories preserve collective cultural memories, stretching back to the dramatic sea level rise that ended the last ice age. Communities watched coastlines disappear generation after generation. Entire villages slowly vanished beneath advancing tides. Knowledge migrated inland with survivors. Over centuries, memory transformed into legend. Perhaps Atlantis became the symbolic name for every lost homeland swallowed by rising oceans. Technology adds another fascinating layer. Satellite mapping now reveals submerged river channels beneath the Persian Gulf. Marine surveys identify ancient shorelines hidden below modern seas. Ground-penetrating sonar continues discovering structures impossible to investigate only decades ago. Every year, the underwater map of prehistory grows larger. Every discovery reminds us that archaeology has explored only a tiny fraction of Earth's drowned landscapes. Imagine what still waits beneath thousands of square kilometers of sediment. Entire ports, temples, villages, roads, maybe even cities. Not necessarily magical, not powered by impossible technology, simply ancient enough to rewrite everything we believe about civilization's beginnings. Plato claimed Atlantis disappeared in a single day and night of terrible earthquakes and floods. Whether literal or symbolic, the image remains powerful. A civilization reaching extraordinary heights, only to vanish almost completely, leaving behind fragments, memories, stories carried across generations by survivors who no longer possessed the world they once knew. Perhaps that explains why nearly every civilization believed wisdom came from an earlier age. Egypt looked backward. Mesopotamia looked backward. India looked backward. They did not imagine progress beginning with themselves. They believed they inherited knowledge from people who came before. Today, Atlantis remains officially unproven. No definitive ruins, no universally accepted location, no artifact declaring, "This was Atlantis," yet the legend refuses to disappear. Not because people crave fantasy, but because archaeology continues uncovering evidence that our distant past was far more complex than anyone once imagined. Every submerged coastline, every drowned settlement, every forgotten harbor, brings us one step closer to understanding that civilization did not simply appear. It survived. And somewhere beneath oceans that cover more than 70% of our planet, the greatest chapter of humanity's forgotten past may still rest in complete silence, waiting for the day the sea finally gives it back. The deepest mysteries are not always buried beneath the earth. Sometimes they stand in plain sight, carved into mountainsides, rising above forests, watching centuries pass without speaking a single word. Travelers have admired them. Pilgrims have worshipped them. Archaeologists have measured every visible stone. Yet one question refuses to disappear. Who truly built Göbekli Tepe? Because if its builders existed nearly 12,000 years ago, then almost everything we believed about the birth of civilization may have begun thousands of years earlier than history once allowed. Long before the pyramids pierced Egypt's horizon, before Stonehenge cast its shadow across England, before the first cities of Mesopotamia emerged from the river valleys. A community gathered on a lonely hill in what is now southeastern Turkey. There, they created something that should not have existed. Massive stone circles, towering limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons each, beautiful relief carvings of lions, foxes, snakes, vultures, boars, wild cattle, spiders, and creatures still difficult to identify. Every pillar was carefully shaped. Every enclosure followed deliberate planning. Every surface revealed astonishing craftsmanship. And according to radiocarbon dating, it was built around 9600 BC, nearly 7,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza. When German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt first recognized the site's true importance during the 1990s, many experts struggled to accept what they were seeing. Conventional history taught that large-scale monuments could only appear after agriculture. First came farming, then permanent villages, then organized religion, finally, monumental architecture. Göbekli Tepe reversed the entire sequence. Its builders appeared to construct monumental sacred spaces before the rise of farming itself. That discovery forced archaeology into uncomfortable territory. If hunter-gatherers could organize thousands of workers, transport enormous stone blocks, coordinate skilled carving, and maintain ceremonial centers over centuries, then perhaps they were far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. The mystery begins with the pillars themselves. Most stand over 5 meters tall. Their distinctive T-shaped form appears throughout the site. Many are decorated with belts, loincloths, hands resting across the front, and carefully carved fingers. These are not ordinary columns. They appear almost human, silent figures frozen in stone, watching, guarding, waiting. Some researchers believe they represent ancestors. Others suggest powerful spiritual beings. Still others think they symbolize priests or leaders. No written language existed to explain their purpose. The stones remain silent, yet their carvings continue speaking in another way. Predators dominate the imagery. Snakes coil across the limestone. Foxes run beneath towering figures. Scorpions spread their claws. Vultures circle overhead. Unlike later civilizations that celebrated agriculture and domestic life, Göbekli Tepe focuses overwhelmingly on the untamed wilderness. It reflects a world balanced between survival and mystery, a landscape where humans remained only one part of a far larger natural order. Then came another astonishing discovery. The builders intentionally buried the entire complex. Not abandoned, buried. Enclosure after enclosure was carefully filled with stone rubble, animal bones, broken tools, and earth. Thousands upon thousands of cubic meters of material completely sealed the monuments. This was no natural collapse. Someone deliberately covered everything. Why? Were they preserving it? Protecting it? Ending an era? Or hiding knowledge they believed should remain beneath the earth? Even today, no one knows. Perhaps the greatest surprise is how little of the site has actually been excavated. Ground-penetrating radar and geophysical surveys suggest that only a small percentage of Göbekli Tepe has been uncovered. Dozens of additional circular structures remain buried beneath the hill. Some may be even older than those already exposed. Every season brings new discoveries. Every trench raises new questions. Some researchers now believe Göbekli Tepe belonged to a much larger ceremonial landscape. Nearby sites such as Karahan Tepe, Sefer Tepe, and several recently identified locations contain remarkably similar architecture. Massive T-shaped pillars, stone enclosures, advanced craftsmanship. Together, they suggest an entire network rather than one isolated sanctuary. Perhaps these were not separate settlements at all, but parts of a single cultural tradition stretching across the region. A civilization without cities, a religion without writing, a society whose greatest achievements remained hidden for nearly 12,000 years. Ancient legends add another layer of intrigue. Across Mesopotamia, stories describe sacred hills where divine knowledge first descended. Some traditions speak of watchers who taught humanity after a great catastrophe. Others remember a sacred mountain connecting heaven and earth. Modern archaeology cannot confirm such stories. Yet standing among Göbekli Tepe's towering pillars, it becomes surprisingly easy to understand how myths begin. The place feels ancient beyond imagination, older than recorded history, older than memory itself. Then there is the question of astronomy. Several researchers have proposed that certain enclosures align with important celestial events. Some argue the pillars track specific stars. Others suggest observations of solstices or constellations. One controversial theory even links animal carvings to ancient skies preserved in symbolic form. These interpretations remain debated. No scholarly consensus exists. But if even part of them proves correct, Göbekli Tepe was more than a ceremonial gathering place. It may also have served as one of humanity's earliest observatories, watching both earth and sky, studying cycles that governed survival itself. Excavations have recovered thousands of animal bones: gazelles, wild cattle, boars, birds. Evidence suggests enormous communal feasts once took place here. People traveled from distant regions to gather upon this hill, not merely to survive, but to participate in something greater than themselves. Perhaps religion united communities before agriculture ever could. Perhaps belief created civilization, rather than civilization creating belief. That possibility changes everything. For generations, we assumed permanent settlements produced temples. Göbekli Tepe hints the opposite. Temples may have inspired permanent settlements. Communities gathered repeatedly for ritual. Eventually, they remained nearby. Fields were cultivated. Villages expanded. Agriculture followed. Civilization emerged not simply from hunger, but from shared purpose. Today, the limestone pillars still rise beneath protective shelters. Wind moves quietly across the ancient hill. Visitors walk among monuments carved by hands separated from us by nearly 12 millennia. Hands belonging to people whose names vanished before writing was invented, whose language disappeared without a trace, whose beliefs survive only through stone. Perhaps they were not mysterious superhumans. Perhaps they possessed no forgotten technology. Perhaps their greatest achievement was something even more extraordinary: cooperation, vision, the determination to build for generations they would never meet. Yet one truth remains impossible to ignore. Göbekli Tepe appeared suddenly, already magnificent, already organized, already astonishingly advanced. And if such a place could remain hidden beneath an ordinary hill for 12,000 years, how many more chapters of humanity's forgotten story still sleep beneath the earth, waiting for someone to uncover them? The oldest maps never mention it. No empire claimed it. No empire claimed it. No king carved its name into stone. Yet beneath the turquoise waters off the western coast of India lies a city that has challenged archaeologists, historians, and oceanographers alike. Streets disappear beneath layers of marine sediment. Stone walls stretch across the seabed. Massive blocks rest in formations that seem far too deliberate to be random geology. Some call it an ancient port. Others believe it is the legendary city of Dwarka, and a few wonder whether it represents something even older, a civilization swallowed by the sea long before recorded history truly began. For thousands of years, Indian tradition spoke of a magnificent city built upon the coast, a place of dazzling architecture, golden towers, broad avenues, harbors filled with ships from distant lands. According to the Mahabharata, Dwarka was the kingdom of Krishna himself. But its ending was even more remarkable than its beginning. The texts describe the sea gradually reclaiming the city after Krishna's departure. The streets disappeared beneath rising water. Palaces sank into the ocean. The kingdom vanished almost completely. For centuries, historians considered the story symbolic, a beautiful legend, nothing more, until divers entered the Arabian Sea. During the late 20th century, marine archaeologists conducting underwater surveys near modern Dwarka began noticing unusual formations resting beneath nearly 40 meters of water. Stone walls, rectangular foundations, large cut blocks, anchors carved from sandstone, structures arranged with striking geometric precision. The discoveries immediately sparked worldwide fascination. Were these the remains of an ancient harbor, or evidence of one of humanity's oldest drowned cities? As exploration continued, more questions emerged than answers. Divers recovered carefully shaped stone anchors, unlike ordinary natural rock. Some weighed hundreds of kilograms. Their symmetrical holes suggested ropes once passed through them. Anchors of similar design had been discovered in ancient ports across the Indian Ocean. If ships once docked here, then organized maritime trade existed along this coastline thousands of years ago. But how old were these structures? That question became the center of intense debate. Some dating methods suggested portions of the site belonged to the late Bronze Age. Others argued nearby artifacts pointed toward even earlier occupation. Organic material recovered from surrounding sediments produced dates that stretched further into the past than many researchers expected. Not everyone agreed. Marine archaeology is notoriously difficult. Currents move objects. Sediment buries evidence. Storms reshape coastlines. A single date rarely tells the whole story. Yet one fact remained undeniable. Something artificial existed beneath the sea. The mystery deepened with sonar mapping. High-resolution surveys revealed long, linear formations extending beneath layers of sand. Some appeared to resemble streets. Others suggested walls dividing separate districts. Certain sections formed nearly right angles, difficult to explain through ordinary coastal erosion alone. Still, skepticism remained. Nature occasionally creates surprisingly geometric formations. Only careful excavation could distinguish ancient construction from unusual geology. Every dive uncovered another fragment of the puzzle. Stone platforms, broken pillars, worked blocks showing signs of shaping, fragments scattered across the seabed like pieces of a forgotten memory. The deeper researchers explored, the more the underwater landscape resembled a city interrupted rather than completed. Then attention turned toward rising sea levels. At the end of the last ice age, oceans rose more than 100 meters worldwide. Entire coastlines vanished beneath advancing water. River valleys disappeared. Plains became seabeds. Communities living near ancient shorelines faced a slow but relentless transformation. Generation after generation watched the sea claim more land. Perhaps the legends of Dwarka preserved those distant memories. Not a city swallowed overnight by supernatural forces, but one gradually surrendered to nature over centuries until only stories remained. Indian tradition contains repeated references to earlier ages destroyed by enormous floods. Each age gives way to another. Knowledge survives through a handful of wise individuals. Civilization begins again. These stories echo flood traditions found across Mesopotamia, Greece, China, and countless other cultures. Different languages, different landscapes, the same recurring memory. Water changes everything. Some researchers propose that ancient coastal settlements inspired these legends. Communities forced inland carried memories of lost homes into future generations. Over centuries, history transformed into mythology. Names changed. Events merged. Reality blended with symbolism. Yet beneath every legend remained a submerged truth. People once lived where oceans now stretch endlessly toward the horizon. The craftsmanship found near Dwarka also raises fascinating questions. Many recovered stones display smooth surfaces and straight edges. Large blocks appear intentionally placed. Several alignments seem unlikely to result from random collapse. Could these represent harbor facilities, protective seawalls, temple foundations, or buildings whose upper sections have long since disappeared? Without complete excavation, certainty remains impossible. Technology continues transforming the investigation. Modern multi-beam sonar, sub-bottom profiling, three-dimensional seabed mapping, remotely operated vehicles capable of exploring areas too dangerous for divers. Each advancement reveals additional details hidden beneath sediment. Every new survey expands the visible footprint of the submerged landscape. Yet only a small portion has been thoroughly investigated. Vast stretches remain untouched beneath shifting sands. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Dwarka is not what has been discovered, but what may still lie buried. Every year, marine currents expose new sections while concealing others. Artifacts appear, then disappear again beneath fresh sediment. The sea protects its secrets with remarkable patience. Standing on the modern shoreline at sunset, it is difficult to imagine that beneath the gentle waves rests a landscape once walked by thousands. Children playing beside markets, merchants unloading ships, priests climbing temple steps, families watching the horizon where the sea eventually claimed everything they built. Whether the submerged remains belong to the legendary Dwarka, exactly as described in ancient texts, remains uncertain. History and mythology rarely fit together perfectly, but perhaps they were never meant to. Legends often preserve emotional truth rather than precise chronology. They remember loss, survival, change, the sea becoming stronger than memory itself. As archaeologists continue exploring the waters off India's western coast, one possibility grows increasingly difficult to ignore. Civilization has always preferred rivers and coastlines. Those same places became the first victims of rising seas. If Dwarka survived beneath the Arabian Sea, how many other forgotten cities now rest beneath oceans across the world? Perhaps Atlantis was not one place. Perhaps it was every coastal civilization humanity forgot, every harbor swallowed by rising tides, every temple surrendered to the waves, every street where only fish now pass. Because the deeper we explore the oceans, the more we realize that history's oldest chapters were never erased. They were simply hidden beneath the water, waiting patiently for the day humanity learns to read the sea once again. Long before the first pyramids rose above the Egyptian sands, before emperors claimed heaven's mandate in China, before Rome, Greece, or Babylon entered history, a civilization flourished in the valleys of ancient Peru that should not have existed. They left behind no written language, no towering armies, no vast empire recorded in legend. Yet they built monumental pyramids, engineered complex cities, and established one of humanity's earliest urban societies nearly 5,000 years ago. Today we know it as Caral. But the deeper archaeologists investigate this forgotten civilization, the more one astonishing possibility emerges. Could the Americas have developed civilization entirely on their own? Thousands of years earlier than anyone once believed? For centuries, the deserts of coastal Peru appeared almost empty. Dry valleys, scattered stone mounds, wind-blown hills. Nothing about the landscape suggested it once held one of the oldest cities on Earth. Travelers passed through without noticing. Farmers cultivated nearby fields. Even early archaeologists assumed the low mounds were simply natural formations or minor ruins from later cultures. Only in the late 20th century did careful excavation begin revealing something extraordinary hidden beneath centuries of dust. Massive pyramids, sunken ceremonial plazas, residential districts, public gathering spaces, entire neighborhoods connected by carefully planned pathways. The city stretched across more than 60 hectares, making it one of the largest settlements anywhere in the ancient world during its time. Radiocarbon dating stunned researchers. Around 2600 BC, contemporary with the earliest pyramids of Egypt, older than the great civilizations of Mesoamerica by nearly 2,000 years. History suddenly became much more complicated. Until then, many scholars believed civilization emerged independently in only a handful of regions: Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China. Now another cradle of civilization stood silently beside them, one that had developed across the Pacific, isolated from the Old World. Yet Caral differed from every other early civilization in remarkable ways. No defensive walls surrounded the city. No evidence suggested constant warfare. No royal tombs overflowed with gold. No giant statues celebrated conquering kings. Instead, the builders invested enormous effort into ceremonial architecture, public spaces, music, astronomy, and social organization. The largest pyramids dominated the valley, built from carefully stacked stone wrapped inside woven reed bags filled with rocks. These bags, known today as shikras, acted almost like ancient engineering technology. They stabilized enormous structures against earthquakes, allowing the pyramids to survive for thousands of years in one of the world's most seismically active regions. Modern engineers continue studying the method. Simple, elegant, remarkably effective. Sometimes ancient builders solved problems using techniques modern societies only recently learned to appreciate. The city also possessed carefully designed circular plazas sunk below ground level. Wide staircases descended toward open gathering spaces. Researchers believe these areas hosted ceremonies, community meetings, or religious events involving large portions of the population. Their acoustics remain astonishing. Even a quiet voice spoken from the center carries naturally throughout the plaza, almost as though the architects understood how sound itself could become part of ritual. Then archaeologists uncovered something unexpected: musical instruments. Dozens of flutes carved from pelican and condor bones, beautifully crafted, carefully tuned, some decorated with intricate engravings. Music clearly played an important role within Caral society. Perhaps ceremonies echoed across the valley as melodies drifted between the pyramids. Perhaps songs preserved traditions no written language ever recorded. Because unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, Caral left behind no decipherable script. If its people wrote at all, those records have vanished. Instead, knowledge may have passed through memory, ceremony, and oral tradition. One mysterious discovery has fueled endless discussion: bundles of knotted cords resembling the later Inca quipu. The Inca famously used colored cords with carefully tied knots to record numerical information. Some researchers wonder whether similar systems existed thousands of years earlier at Caral. If true, it would suggest sophisticated information management long before conventional writing appeared in the Andes. The evidence remains debated, but the possibility is fascinating. Not every civilization needed ink upon stone. Some may have written with fiber instead. Agriculture formed another foundation of Caral's success. Farmers cultivated cotton, squash, beans, gourds, and other crops using irrigation canals that transformed the dry valley into fertile farmland. Cotton proved especially valuable, not for clothing alone. It supplied fishing communities along the nearby Pacific coast with nets. In return, fishermen provided enormous quantities of seafood: anchovies, sardines, shellfish. This partnership created one of humanity's earliest known economic exchange systems. Mountains supplied stone. The coast supplied fish. The valley produced crops. Trade connected them all. Caral prospered through cooperation rather than conquest. At least, that is what the archaeological evidence currently suggests. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the city is its silence. No inscriptions explain who built the pyramids. No kings introduce themselves. No priest records sacred rituals. The stones remain mute. Everything we know comes from careful excavation and patient interpretation. Yet even without words, the city speaks. Its architecture reflects planning. Its engineering reflects knowledge. Its survival reflects extraordinary organization. Then came the decline. Gradually, the city emptied. Climate changes may have altered river systems. Powerful earthquakes struck the region. Environmental pressures reshaped life across the valley. Slowly, the ceremonial centers fell quiet. Buildings were abandoned. Sand covered plazas. Wind erased footprints. By the time later civilizations flourished across Peru, Caral had already become ancient history. Its memory faded completely. Today, visitors standing atop the Great Pyramids look across a peaceful valley surrounded by distant mountains. The landscape feels timeless. Yet beneath every stone rests a profound reminder. Human civilization did not follow one single path. It blossomed independently wherever knowledge, cooperation, and determination found fertile ground. Caral forces us to abandon comfortable assumptions about history. Great cities did not belong exclusively to Egypt or Mesopotamia. Innovation was not limited to one continent. Complex society emerged wherever people dared to dream beyond survival. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. Separated by vast oceans, without contact, without shared empires, different civilizations across the world began asking remarkably similar questions. How should cities be built? How should water be managed? How should communities organize themselves? How should humanity reach towards something greater? Perhaps the answers were never taught by one forgotten civilization. Or perhaps they were inherited from memories far older than any monument still standing. Because every time archaeologists uncover another ancient city beneath sand, jungle, or stone, they reveal not only what humanity once achieved, but how much of our earliest story still waits beneath the earth, silent, patient, and almost forgotten. The oldest monuments rarely stand where we expect them. They are not always hidden beneath deserts or buried beneath jungles. Sometimes they rise from open plains, visible for centuries, so enormous that generations mistake them for natural hills. Travelers pass them without question. Farmers plow around them. Children climb their slopes without realizing they are walking across one of humanity's greatest forgotten achievements. In northeastern Bosnia, just outside the quiet town of Visoko, one such hill has become the center of one of archaeology's most controversial debates. Some call it a mountain shaped by nature. Others insist it is the largest pyramid ever built. If true, it would force historians to rewrite the entire timeline of civilization. If false, it remains one of the most fascinating examples of how mystery can reshape the way we see the past. The structure is known today as the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. From a distance, it looks almost impossibly symmetrical. Its four sides appear aligned closely with the cardinal directions. The slopes rise with striking geometric precision. Dense forests now cover its surface, hiding much of its shape beneath vegetation. Yet aerial photographs reveal something difficult to ignore. The hill resembles an enormous pyramid, far larger than any standing pyramid in Egypt. The idea first gained international attention in 2005 when researcher Semir Osmanagic proposed that the hill was not natural at all. According to his theory, it had been deliberately constructed thousands of years ago by an unknown civilization. His claim immediately divided the scientific world. Many archaeologists rejected the hypothesis outright, arguing that the hill consists of ordinary geological formations produced through natural processes. Others believed the site deserved closer examination before reaching conclusions. Excavations soon began. Workers uncovered large stone-like slabs beneath layers of soil. Some appeared remarkably flat. Others fit together with surprising regularity. Supporters argued these were ancient concrete blocks, artificial construction hidden beneath centuries of earth. Laboratory analyses produced conflicting interpretations. Certain researchers suggested the material displayed unusual strength and durability. Others concluded the formations resulted from naturally fractured sedimentary rock. The debate continues today. Yet the pyramid itself is only part of the mystery. Deep beneath the surrounding hills lies an extensive network of tunnels. Known as the Ravni tunnels, these underground passages stretch for kilometers. Some sections are spacious enough for several people to walk comfortably. Others narrow into carefully constructed corridors. Their purpose remains unknown. Supporters believe the tunnels once connected different pyramid structures throughout the valley. Skeptics argue many passages were created during later mining activity. But several features continue attracting attention. Measurements inside the tunnels consistently record unusually high concentrations of negative air ions. Some visitors report the air feels remarkably fresh. Others describe an unusual sense of calm after spending time underground. Scientists studying air quality have confirmed elevated ion levels in certain sections, although opinions differ regarding their significance. Then came the electromagnetic measurements. Several independent research teams claimed to detect a focused electromagnetic beam emerging vertically from the summit of the so-called Pyramid of the Sun. The reported frequency remained surprisingly stable. Supporters interpreted this as evidence of ancient energy technology. Mainstream researchers responded cautiously, suggesting ordinary geological processes or measurement limitations could explain the observations. No universally accepted explanation has emerged. The mystery deepened with thermal imaging. Certain areas reportedly appeared warmer than surrounding terrain during specific conditions. Ground-penetrating surveys identified additional subsurface anomalies. Whether these represent buried architecture or natural geological features remains uncertain. Every new measurement seems to generate two opposing interpretations. One supporting extraordinary conclusions, the other favoring conventional geology. Yet perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Visoko is not the hill itself, but its alignment. Supporters point out that the pyramid's faces appear oriented toward true north with remarkable accuracy. Ancient civilizations around the world often aligned sacred structures with celestial directions. The Egyptian pyramids, Mesoamerican temples, megalithic monuments across Europe. Could this similarity be meaningful? Or does human perception naturally search for patterns even where none exist? The question remains open. Local legends add another layer of mystery. For generations, villagers told stories about hidden chambers beneath the hills, ancient treasures buried underground, strange sounds emerging from the earth during quiet nights, lights occasionally seen above the forests. Most dismissed these tales as ordinary folklore. Yet once excavations began, the old stories returned with renewed interest. Across history, forgotten places often survive longest through legend. Whether those legends preserve fact or imagination is another matter entirely. Satellite imagery has revealed additional pyramid-shaped hills surrounding the main structure. Some researchers refer to them as the Pyramid of the Moon, the Pyramid of the Dragon, the Temple of Mother Earth, and the Pyramid of Love. Together, they appear to form a geometric arrangement across the valley. Supporters see intentional planning. Critics see ordinary mountain topography interpreted through hopeful eyes. Both perspectives continue competing without definitive resolution. One fascinating aspect often overlooked is the psychological effect the site has on visitors. Standing before the enormous forest-covered slopes, it becomes surprisingly difficult to judge scale. The hill feels artificial. Its angles seem almost too precise. Whether produced by nature or human hands, the landscape creates a powerful illusion of deliberate design. Our minds instinctively seek order. Sometimes nature provides it. Sometimes ancient builders do. Separating the two is one of archaeology's greatest challenges. The Bosnian pyramid debate has become larger than the hill itself. It represents two very different ways of approaching the past. One demands extraordinary evidence before accepting extraordinary claims. The other encourages investigation even when ideas challenge established timelines. Both approaches serve important roles. Without skepticism, imagination becomes fantasy. Without curiosity, discovery becomes impossible. Today, the forests remain quiet. Excavations continue. Tourists walk the trails. Researchers collect new samples. Arguments fill scientific journals, documentaries, and conferences around the world. Yet no final answer has emerged. Perhaps one day overwhelming evidence will confirm the hill as an entirely natural formation. Perhaps future discoveries will reveal forgotten engineering beneath its slopes. Until then, the Bosnian pyramid remains suspended between archaeology and mystery. Not because we lack opinions, but because history sometimes refuses to reveal its secrets all at once. Every civilization we've explored in this journey has left behind questions larger than its monuments. Some mysteries rest beneath oceans, others beneath deserts, and some stand openly before us, challenging not only what we know, but how we decide what is possible. Because history is rarely rewritten in a single moment. It changes one discovery at a time. And somewhere beneath the forests of Visoko, whether shaped by nature or by forgotten hands, another piece of humanity's oldest story may still be waiting beneath the soil. Before the first astronomers charted the heavens, before calendars measured the passing of seasons, before telescopes reached beyond our atmosphere, someone looked into the night sky and built a monument so precise that even today it continues to challenge our understanding of prehistoric knowledge. Hidden beneath layers of chalk in southern England stands Stonehenge, one of the most famous ancient monuments on Earth. Millions have visited it. Thousands have studied it. Yet after centuries of investigation, the greatest question remains unanswered. Who built it? And what knowledge were they trying to preserve? At sunrise on the summer solstice, something extraordinary happens. The first rays of dawn pass directly through the monument's central axis. Light slips between the towering stones with astonishing precision. Thousands gather every year to witness the event. Many see it as beautiful. Others see something much deeper. Because alignments like this do not happen by accident. They require careful observation, generations of planning, an intimate understanding of the movements of the heavens. Stonehenge is far older than most people realize. Construction began around 3000 BC, but it was not built all at once. Generation after generation returned to the site. They reshaped it, expanded it, rearranged enormous stones weighing as much as 25 tons. Some of the smaller bluestones traveled nearly 250 kilometers from the Preseli Hills in Wales. Imagine transporting massive rocks across rivers, forests, and mountains without wheels, cranes, or iron tools. Even today, archaeologists continue debating exactly how they accomplished it. Wooden sledges, rolling logs, ropes, water transport, human determination. Each explanation answers part of the mystery. None fully captures the scale of the achievement. The monument itself is unlike anything surrounding it. Great sandstone pillars rise vertically from the earth. Horizontal lintels rest carefully across their tops. Each joint was carved with surprising precision. Mortise and tenon connections, techniques normally associated with fine woodworking, were recreated in solid stone. The builders clearly understood engineering. The stones were designed to lock together, resisting thousands of years of wind and weather. Few prehistoric monuments display such craftsmanship. Yet the architecture is only the beginning. Researchers studying Stonehenge gradually realized that many of its alignments correspond to celestial events. Not only the summer solstice, the winter solstice as well. Certain lunar cycles, specific positions of the moon during its 18.6-year orbital rhythm. Some researchers suggest the monument functioned as a giant astronomical calculator, a place where priests or observers tracked the heavens with remarkable accuracy. Others believe these alignments were symbolic rather than scientific. Perhaps both interpretations are true. Ancient cultures rarely separated astronomy from spirituality. To them, the movement of the stars guided agriculture, ceremony, navigation, and belief all at once. Then another mystery emerged. Beneath and around Stonehenge lie hundreds of burial mounds. Human remains recovered from the site reveal that this landscape served as an important ceremonial center for centuries before the famous stones were erected. People were gathering here long before the monument reached its final form. The location itself already possessed sacred meaning. Why this particular place? Modern surveys have revealed something remarkable beneath the surrounding plain. Hidden pits, ancient post circles, buried ditches, nearby timber monuments, entire ceremonial landscapes stretching for kilometers. Stonehenge was never isolated. It belonged to a much larger network of sacred sites connected by pathways, rivers, and carefully chosen alignments. The more archaeologists excavate, the larger the ancient complex becomes. One of the greatest breakthroughs arrived through ground-penetrating radar and remote sensing. Structures invisible from the surface suddenly appeared beneath the soil. Massive circular formations, hidden foundations, unknown monuments erased by time but preserved underground. The landscape around Stonehenge proved even more complex than anyone imagined. Every new survey suggested that countless discoveries still remain buried. Then came the question of sound. Acoustic researchers recreated portions of Stonehenge using digital modeling. They discovered that voices and music behave unusually inside the stone circle. Certain frequencies echo gently between the upright stones. Rhythmic drumming creates subtle resonance. The monument may have transformed ordinary sound into something deeply immersive. Imagine standing within the completed circle at night, firelight dancing across polished stone, drums echoing softly, stars filling the sky above. For those gathered there thousands of years ago, the experience must have felt profoundly otherworldly. Ancient legends later added their own explanations. Medieval stories claimed giants carried the stones from distant lands. Others said the wizard Merlin transported them through supernatural power. These tales are not historical evidence. Yet they reveal something fascinating. Even people living centuries after Stonehenge's construction believed the monument belonged to an age beyond ordinary human memory. Its true builders had already become legends. Modern science continues uncovering surprising details. Chemical analysis traced many stones to their geological origins. Ancient DNA revealed that populations migrated across Britain during the monument's long construction. Excavations uncovered animal bones showing enormous seasonal feasts attended by people traveling from distant regions. Stonehenge was more than a local gathering place. It united communities spread across large parts of prehistoric Britain. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not how the stones were raised, but why so many generations devoted centuries to completing them. No single person lived long enough to witness the entire project. Builders began work knowing future generations would finish what they started. That requires extraordinary vision, a shared belief extending far beyond individual lives. Some researchers have proposed that Stonehenge symbolized unity between different tribes. Others believe it honored ancestors. Some argue it marked sacred cycles connecting life, death, and the heavens. No written record survives to settle the debate. The stones remain silent. Yet silence does not mean absence. It means patience. Across 12 chapters, we have traveled through forgotten cities, submerged kingdoms, buried temples, and mysterious civilizations that challenge everything we thought we knew about humanity's beginnings. And here, among the ancient stones standing beneath the open sky, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Our ancestors were not simply surviving. They were observing, calculating, planning, remembering, building monuments whose meanings would outlive their own names. Stonehenge reminds us that the oldest civilizations measured time not only in years, but in generations. Not only in stone, but in memory. And perhaps somewhere beneath the untouched earth surrounding this ancient circle, another buried monument still waits. Another forgotten chapter. Another silent witness to a world that existed long before history believed civilization had truly begun. Long before kingdoms carved their names into stone. Before maps divided the world into nations. Before history began keeping records, an entire civilization rose from the fertile plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. They built cities where none had existed. They invented systems of writing, developed mathematics, organized governments, and raised temples that touched the sky. Yet despite all we know about them, one mystery refuses to disappear. The Sumerians never claimed they created civilization. Again and again, their oldest texts insisted that knowledge came from beings who descended from the heavens. Were these merely symbolic myths, or echoes of memories from a forgotten beginning? Southern Mesopotamia was once an endless landscape of marshes. Seasonal floods reshaped the land every year. There were no forests, very little stone, almost no mountains. At first glance, it seemed like one of the least likely places on Earth for civilization to emerge. Yet sometime around 4500 BC, small farming villages began changing. Simple homes expanded into organized settlements. Canals redirected rivers across the dry plains. Fields multiplied. Trade routes connected distant communities. Generation after generation transformed the wilderness into one of history's first urban civilizations. Then something remarkable happened. Cities appeared. Not villages. Cities. Ur, Uruk, Eridu, Lagash, Nippur. Each surrounded by walls. Each governed by priests and rulers. Each dominated by towering stepped temples known as ziggurats. To later civilizations, these became symbols of divine authority. But to the Sumerians themselves, they represented something even greater. They believed the gods had chosen these locations long before humans arrived. According to their oldest traditions, kingship itself descended from heaven. It is one of the most repeated phrases in Sumerian literature. Not metaphorically, not poetically, repeated almost as historical memory. Modern historians interpret this as religious symbolism, yet the consistency of the tradition continues to fascinate researchers. The Sumerians left behind thousands of clay tablets. Tiny wedges pressed into wet clay created the world's earliest known writing system. Today we call it cuneiform. Unlike civilizations that relied entirely on oral tradition, the Sumerians recorded contracts, laws, astronomical observations, trade records, prayers, mathematics, and epic stories. Their voices still speak across more than 5,000 years. Among those voices appears a remarkable figure, Enki, the god of wisdom, keeper of knowledge, master of fresh waters beneath the earth. Again and again, ancient texts describe Enki teaching humanity. agriculture, craftsmanship, architecture, measurement, law, writing. Knowledge itself appears not as something humans slowly discovered, but as something carefully given. Whether understood literally or symbolically, the message remains extraordinary. Civilized life arrived through instruction, not accident. The city of Eridu held special importance. Many Sumerian traditions describe it as the first city ever founded. According to later king lists, Eridu existed before the Great Flood, long before other famous cities emerged. Archaeologists excavating Eridu uncovered layer upon layer of temples built directly atop one another. Each generation rebuilt the sacred center exactly where earlier builders had worshipped. The site preserves thousands of years of uninterrupted religious tradition, almost as though memory itself became architecture. Then there is the Sumerian king list. At first glance, it appears to be an ordinary record of rulers. But its earliest entries challenge every expectation. The first kings are said to have ruled for tens of thousands of years. One king reigns for 28,800 years, another for 36,000. Only after a catastrophic flood do reign lengths gradually shorten until they resemble ordinary human lifespans. Most historians view these enormous numbers symbolically, perhaps representing dynasties rather than individuals, perhaps expressing divine prestige. Yet the transition before and after the flood remains one of ancient literature's greatest puzzles. Why preserve impossible numbers unless they carry deeper meaning? The flood itself echoes across civilizations. Sumerian texts describe a righteous man warned by a god to build a great vessel before waters destroyed the world. Centuries later, similar stories appear in Babylonian tradition, then Hebrew scripture, then countless flood legends across distant cultures. Whether inspired by regional disasters or preserved memories of real prehistoric flooding, the similarities remain striking. Archaeologists continue searching for evidence connecting these traditions to ancient environmental events. The search continues. Another remarkable achievement lay in Sumerian astronomy. Priests carefully observed planets, stars, eclipses, and lunar cycles. Their mathematical systems divided circles into 360 degrees, hours into 60 minutes, minutes into 60 seconds. Even today, modern civilization measures time using concepts first organized in ancient Mesopotamia. Their understanding of the heavens shaped calendars, agriculture, religion, and governance. Some researchers suggest astronomy became the foundation upon which civilization itself was organized. The ziggurats rising above each city may have served not only as temples, but also as elevated platforms for observing the night sky. Standing atop those terraces beneath clear desert heavens, priests watched predictable cosmic rhythms guiding life below. Perhaps no invention better reflects Sumerian brilliance than writing itself. Tiny impressions in clay transformed memory forever. Knowledge no longer depended solely upon human recollection. Ideas could survive generations. Empires could administer distant cities. Stories could outlive their storytellers. History itself became permanent. Without the Sumerians, much of recorded civilization might have followed a completely different path. Yet despite all their achievements, the civilization slowly declined. Political rivalries divided the cities. Environmental changes altered agriculture. Foreign powers gradually gained influence. Eventually, Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian civilizations inherited much of Sumer's knowledge. Its language faded. Its cities emptied. Its temples crumbled beneath drifting sand. For centuries, the world forgot the people who had first written history. Then, during the 19th century, archaeologists began uncovering clay tablets buried beneath Mesopotamian ruins. Thousands upon thousands emerged from the earth. Forgotten voices returned. Entire libraries preserved beneath collapsed palaces. Once again, the Sumerians spoke, and what they revealed reshaped humanity's understanding of its own origins. Today, we recognize the Sumerians as pioneers of urban civilization. Yet many mysteries remain. Why did their oldest traditions insist civilization descended from heaven? Why do flood narratives appear so consistently across ancient cultures? How did isolated communities suddenly develop writing, mathematics, organized government, monumental architecture, and sophisticated astronomy within only a few centuries? Perhaps future discoveries will answer these questions. Or perhaps some mysteries belong not to archaeology, but to memory. Because every civilization leaves behind more than ruins. It leaves questions. Questions carved into stone, pressed into clay, hidden beneath deserts, waiting patiently for another generation willing to listen. And somewhere beneath the shifting sands of Mesopotamia, another buried tablet may still lie untouched, containing one more forgotten sentence from the civilization that first taught humanity how to write its own story. Before the pyramids of Egypt reached toward the sky. Before Rome dreamed of empire. Before the first emperors ruled China. There existed a civilization so advanced that even today its greatest cities continue to surprise archaeologists. Streets laid out with mathematical precision, sophisticated drainage systems, standardized weights and measurements, multi-story brick homes. And yet, despite these astonishing achievements, the people who built this civilization left behind a mystery that no one has ever solved. Their language remains unreadable. Their rulers remain unknown. Their voices remain silent. This was the Indus Valley Civilization, one of the greatest forgotten worlds in human history. It began quietly. Along the fertile floodplains of the Indus River, scattered farming communities slowly grew into thriving settlements. Season after season, rivers carried rich sediments across the plains. Harvests became larger. Villages expanded. Trade flourished. Then, sometime around 2600 BC, something extraordinary happened. Cities appeared almost simultaneously across an enormous region stretching over 1 million square kilometers. Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dholavira, Rakhigarhi, Lothal. Hundreds of settlements connected through trade, planning, and remarkable engineering. Unlike many ancient civilizations, these cities followed carefully organized layouts. Wide streets intersected one another at nearly perfect right angles. Entire neighborhoods were divided into orderly blocks. Residential districts blended with workshops, marketplaces, and public spaces. Nothing appeared random. Everything suggested planning long before construction ever began. Then archaeologists uncovered one of the civilization's greatest achievements: its drainage system. Nearly every house possessed access to clean water. Bathrooms emptied into covered brick drains running beneath the streets. Inspection chambers allowed maintenance. Wastewater flowed away from homes through carefully engineered channels. Even many medieval cities built thousands of years later lacked sanitation this sophisticated. Imagine living nearly 5,000 years ago and having better urban drainage than countless cities centuries afterward. The people of the Indus Valley clearly valued cleanliness. Private wells supplied water directly to neighborhoods. Public baths occupied important locations. The most famous of these, known today as the Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, remains one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. Constructed from carefully fitted bricks sealed with natural bitumen, the massive pool held water without leaking. Wide staircases descended into its center. Rooms surrounded the structure. But no one knows exactly how it was used. Was it a ceremonial purification site? A gathering place? A sacred pool reserved for important rituals? No written explanation survives. Only the silent bricks remain. Perhaps the greatest mystery lies in what archaeologists did not find. No colossal royal palaces. No extravagant royal tombs. No giant statues celebrating conquering kings. No obvious monuments glorifying military victories. Most early civilizations proudly displayed political power. the Indus Valley appears strangely different. Its architecture suggests remarkable social organization. Yet little evidence points toward absolute rulers. Some scholars believe power may have been shared among councils, merchants, or religious leaders. Others argue that palaces simply remain undiscovered. For now, no one knows. Trade connected the civilization to distant lands. Excavations uncovered shells from the Arabian Sea, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, copper from Rajasthan. Mesopotamian records even mention merchants arriving from a distant land called Meluha. Many historians believe Meluha referred to the Indus civilization itself. Ships likely crossed the Arabian Sea carrying timber, precious stones, ivory, beads, cotton, and finely crafted goods. Cotton itself may represent another remarkable achievement. The Indus people were among the earliest known civilizations to cultivate and weave cotton into textiles. Long before much of the ancient world adopted the material, skilled craftsmen transformed delicate fibers into clothing traded across vast distances. Then there are the seals. Thousands of them. Small carved squares made from steatite, each engraved with animals. Bulls, elephants, tigers, unicorn-like creatures unlike any known species. Above these figures appears a sequence of mysterious symbols, short inscriptions repeated again and again. This is the Indus script, or at least what remains of it. Despite decades of study, no one has deciphered a single sentence. Artificial intelligence has analyzed the symbols. Linguists have compared them with dozens of ancient languages. Mathematicians have searched for hidden patterns. Nothing has produced a universally accepted translation. The civilization speaks, but humanity has forgotten how to listen. Imagine discovering thousands of books, yet being unable to read even one word. That is the challenge facing every researcher studying the Indus Valley. The symbols may record names, trade goods, religious ideas, government records, or something entirely unexpected. Until the script is deciphered, countless secrets remain locked away. Archaeologists also noticed remarkable standardization throughout the civilization. Bricks followed consistent proportions. Weights matched identical measurement systems across cities separated by hundreds of kilometers. Construction techniques remained surprisingly uniform. Such consistency suggests careful regulation and communication. Yet no central authority has ever been identified. How did such a vast civilization maintain order across enormous distances without leaving obvious records of kings or emperors? The question remains unanswered. Then came the decline. Around 1900 BC, cities gradually emptied. Trade slowed. Construction ceased. People dispersed into smaller communities. For generations, scholars believed invading armies destroyed the civilization. Modern evidence tells a different story. Climate change likely altered river systems. The mighty Ghaggar Hakra River may have gradually dried or shifted course. Monsoon patterns weakened. Agriculture became increasingly difficult. Without reliable water, cities slowly lost their populations. Rather than sudden destruction, the civilization quietly faded. Nature succeeded where armies never appeared. Today, satellite technology continues revealing buried settlements hidden beneath fields and deserts. Every year brings new discoveries. Entire cities remain unexplored. Ancient roads lie concealed beneath farmland. Thousands of artifacts still wait beneath layers of earth. The story is far from complete. Perhaps somewhere beneath the plains of Pakistan or northwestern India rests a single artifact capable of changing everything. A longer inscription, a bilingual text, a forgotten library. One discovery could finally unlock the silent language of the Indus people. Until then, they remain among history's greatest mysteries. They mastered urban planning, engineered sophisticated sanitation, built prosperous cities, connected continents through trade, yet never left behind a readable explanation of who they were. Perhaps that silence is what makes them so unforgettable, because history often preserves the loudest civilizations, those who celebrated conquest and kings. But sometimes the quietest civilizations leave behind the deepest mysteries. As we continue our journey through the world's oldest forgotten cultures, one truth becomes increasingly clear. Civilization did not emerge in a single place. It blossomed wherever human curiosity met opportunity. Different peoples, different rivers, different beliefs, yet the same desire to build something greater than themselves. And somewhere beneath the shifting sands and fertile plains of the ancient Indus, another seal may still lie buried. Waiting for the day, humanity finally remembers how to read the words of one of its oldest civilizations, long before emperors carved their victories into stone, before written history gave names to kingdoms, before even the earliest dynasties of Egypt reached their height. Another civilization flourished along the northern coast of Peru. They left behind towering pyramids, extraordinary artwork, and one of the most disturbing religious traditions ever uncovered. Their temples echoed with ceremonies unlike anything archaeologists expected to find. Human sacrifice on a massive scale, warriors immortalized in murals, priests carrying ritual blades beneath the desert sun. This was the Moche civilization, a culture whose astonishing achievements were matched only by the mysteries surrounding its sudden disappearance. At first glance, the Peruvian coastline seems an unlikely birthplace for civilization. It is one of the driest deserts on Earth. Rain rarely falls. Towering sand dunes stretch toward barren mountains. Only narrow river valleys fed by melting Andean snow create ribbons of life across the landscape. For thousands of years, people transformed these fragile valleys into thriving agricultural centers. By around AD 100, one society began rising above the rest. Today we call them the Moche. Unlike many ancient civilizations, the Moche never formed a single empire. Instead, they consisted of powerful regional kingdoms connected by shared beliefs, artistic traditions, and engineering. Yet despite political divisions, their accomplishments remain astonishing. The first thing visitors notice are the pyramids. Not smooth stone monuments like those of Egypt. These were immense adobe structures built from millions of sun-dried mud bricks. The greatest among them still dominates the desert today. Huaca del Sol, the Pyramid of the Sun. Archaeologists estimate that more than 100 million adobe bricks were used during its construction. Imagine thousands of workers carrying bricks beneath the blazing coastal sun for generations. Each brick marked with symbols identifying the communities that produced them. Even construction itself became a collective act of devotion. Nearby stood another extraordinary monument, Huaca de la Luna, the Pyramid of the Moon. Unlike its larger companion, this temple preserved astonishing murals hidden beneath centuries of sand. Walls exploded with color: red, yellow, white, blue. Complex geometric patterns surrounded terrifying faces with sharp fangs and fierce eyes. Again and again, one figure appeared, a supernatural being known today as the Decapitator God, half human, half divine, always holding ritual weapons or severed heads. The imagery left little doubt. Religion stood at the center of Moche society. Then archaeologists uncovered evidence that transformed speculation into certainty. Human remains. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Young men, bound, executed, their throats carefully cut using ceremonial blades. The bodies showed no signs of hurried burial. These were deliberate rituals performed with extraordinary precision. Nearby murals depicted nearly identical ceremonies. Warriors captured enemies. Priests collected blood. Goblets were raised toward divine figures. For centuries, scholars wondered whether the artwork represented mythology. Excavation revealed something chilling. The ceremonies were real. Bones matched the paintings almost exactly. The artists had recorded events they personally witnessed. Yet the sacrifices themselves raised difficult questions. Who were these victims? At first, researchers believed they were local citizens offered to the gods. Later, forensic analysis revealed something different. Many victims bore injuries consistent with combat. Broken noses, healed fractures, defensive wounds. These were warriors captured in battle. After defeat, they became participants in sacred ceremonies believed to maintain cosmic balance. To modern eyes, the practice appears horrifying. To the Moche, it may have represented one of their highest religious obligations. Understanding the past often requires confronting beliefs profoundly different from our own. The Moche also possessed remarkable artistic talent. Their ceramic vessels remain among the most realistic ever created in the ancient world. Unlike stylized art from many civilizations, Moche potters sculpted astonishingly lifelike human faces. Every wrinkle, every expression, every scar. Some vessels appear to portray actual individuals, perhaps rulers, priests, warriors, ordinary people. Together, they form a gallery of ancient humanity, unlike anything else surviving from antiquity. Many ceramics depict scenes of daily life: fishing, farming, hunting, metalworking. Others portray ceremonies, mythology, medicine, and intimate human relationships with extraordinary honesty. Through clay, the Moche documented nearly every aspect of their world. Without these artworks, much of their civilization would remain invisible. Because unlike the Maya or the Egyptians, the Moche left behind no known writing system. Their history survives almost entirely through archaeology and art. Metalworking reached remarkable sophistication. Gold, silver, copper, tumaga alloys combining multiple metals. Master craftsmen created elaborate masks, crowns, necklaces, ear ornaments, and ceremonial knives. Some objects display craftsmanship so delicate that modern jewelers still admire their precision. One discovery stunned the archaeological world. In 1987, excavators uncovered an untouched royal tomb at Sipan. For centuries, grave robbers had looted nearly every major burial across Peru. Sipan was different. It remained sealed. Inside lay the Lord of Sipan, covered in gold ornaments, turquoise, shell jewelry, copper regalia, accompanied by sacrificed attendants, llamas, guards, and even a loyal dog. The burial transformed understanding of Moche society. It proved that powerful rulers governed these kingdoms with immense ceremonial authority. Yet even wealth could not protect their civilization forever. Around AD 600, dramatic environmental changes struck northern Peru. Evidence suggests repeated El Niño events unleashed catastrophic flooding across the river valleys. Fields disappeared beneath water. Irrigation canals collapsed. Then came prolonged drought. Agriculture faltered. Political instability followed. Regional kingdoms weakened. Eventually, new cultures rose upon the foundations the Moche left behind. Cities emptied. Temples fell silent. Sand reclaimed the pyramids. For centuries, their existence faded into legend. Today, drones, satellite mapping, and ground-penetrating radar continue revealing hidden temples buried beneath the desert. Entire ceremonial complexes remain unexplored. Countless tombs still lie concealed beneath shifting sand. Each excavation uncovers another piece of a civilization whose artistic brilliance matched its spiritual intensity. The Moche remind us that greatness is not always measured by conquest alone. Sometimes it is measured by creativity, by engineering, by devotion, and sometimes by beliefs so unfamiliar they force us to reconsider what civilization truly means. Because history is rarely simple. The people who created breathtaking works of art also practiced rituals that disturb us today. The same hands that sculpted beauty also built temples of sacrifice. Human civilization has always contained both light and shadow. As we continue uncovering the world's oldest forgotten cultures, one lesson becomes increasingly impossible to ignore. The past is not a comfortable place. It is a mirror. It reflects humanity in all its brilliance and all its darkness. And somewhere beneath the silent deserts of Peru, another sealed tomb may still wait beneath the sand, holding the face of a forgotten ruler, or the final secret of one of the most mysterious civilizations ever to rise before the modern world. Before Rome built its roads, before Athens became the cradle of philosophy, before the great dynasties of China unified the East. A civilization emerged deep within the rainforests of Central America that measured time with astonishing precision, raised cities above the jungle canopy, and gazed into the heavens with a level of astronomical knowledge that still amazes scientists today. They tracked eclipses centuries in advance. They calculated planetary movements with incredible accuracy. They built monuments that aligned perfectly with the sun, Venus, and the stars. Yet despite all they achieved, one mystery has haunted historians for generations. Why did so many of their magnificent cities suddenly fall silent? This was the Maya civilization, one of humanity's greatest intellectual achievements and one of history's greatest enigmas. The jungle hides secrets unlike any other place on Earth. From above, the forest appears endless, a sea of green stretching beyond the horizon. But beneath that dense canopy lies another world. Stone pyramids swallowed by vines, palaces reclaimed by towering trees, ancient roads disappearing beneath centuries of soil, entire cities forgotten until modern technology peeled back the jungle itself. For centuries, explorers stumbled upon isolated ruins without realizing they belonged to a civilization that once covered vast regions of present-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Then came one of archaeology's greatest revolutions. Using airborne laser scanning known as LiDAR, researchers stripped away the forest digitally. The results were breathtaking. More than 60,000 previously unknown structures appeared beneath the trees. Cities connected by elevated highways, massive agricultural terraces, reservoirs, fortifications, causeways stretching for kilometers. The jungle had hidden an entire civilization in plain sight. The Maya did not simply survive within the rainforest. They transformed it. Unlike many ancient societies that depended on mighty rivers, the Maya often built cities where permanent water sources barely existed. They engineered reservoirs capable of storing enormous quantities of rainwater. Canals directed seasonal floods. Terraced fields prevented erosion. Sophisticated farming techniques sustained populations numbering in the tens of thousands. In a landscape many believed impossible for urban life, the Maya created thriving centers of culture and science. Towering above every city stood pyramids, not merely monuments, living calendars carved into stone. The Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza remains one of the finest examples. Twice each year during the spring and autumn equinoxes, sunlight strikes the pyramid's stairway at such a precise angle that triangular shadows form the body of a serpent descending toward a carved stone head at the base. Thousands gather to witness the illusion. Yet it is no illusion at all. It is architecture designed to work with the heavens. Only builders possessing generations of astronomical observation could have achieved such precision. The Maya watched the skies with extraordinary dedication. Their astronomers tracked Venus more accurately than many civilizations equipped with far more advanced technology. They understood lunar cycles, solar eclipses, planetary movements, seasonal changes. The famous Dresden Codex preserves detailed astronomical tables capable of predicting celestial events with astonishing reliability. Without telescopes, without modern instruments, only patient observation spanning centuries. Then there was their calendar. Actually, several calendars working together. The Tzolk'in governed sacred ceremonies. The Hab measured the solar year. The long count tracked immense cycles extending thousands of years. Contrary to popular myth, the long count never predicted the end of the world. Its famous 2012 date simply marked the completion of one great cycle and the beginning of another. Ancient time to the Maya moved in repeating rhythms rather than straight lines. Birth, growth, decline, renewal. Everything returned. Perhaps the greatest achievement of all was writing. The Maya developed one of the most sophisticated writing systems in the ancient Americas. Hundreds of intricate glyphs combined sounds, words, and ideas into richly detailed inscriptions. For centuries, these symbols remained undeciphered. Then, during the 20th century, breakthroughs allowed scholars to begin reading them once more. Kings regained their names. Wars regained their dates. Families regained their histories. Voices silent for over 1,000 years began speaking again. Their monuments describe powerful rulers, political alliances, dynastic rivalries, ceremonies honoring gods and ancestors. The Maya were not one unified empire. They were a network of independent city-states. Each competed for influence, sometimes through diplomacy, sometimes through warfare. Cities such as Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, Copan, and Yaxchilan rose and fell in shifting alliances that lasted centuries. Their history was dynamic, complex, very human, yet the greatest mystery still awaited. Around the 9th century, many of the great southern cities experienced dramatic decline. Construction slowed, monuments ceased, populations dwindled, entire ceremonial centers were abandoned. The jungle slowly reclaimed magnificent temples. For generations, historians searched for a single explanation: invasion, disease, earthquakes. None fully fit the evidence. Modern research suggests a far more complicated story. Extended droughts reduced water supplies. Deforestation weakened local environments. Population growth strained available resources. Political instability intensified conflict between rival kingdoms. Trade networks fractured. No single catastrophe destroyed the Maya. Instead, multiple pressures slowly unraveled one of history's greatest civilizations. Yet the Maya themselves never disappeared. Millions of Maya people still live throughout Central America today. Their languages survive. Their traditions endure. Their descendants continue preserving customs passed from generation to generation. The civilization transformed. It did not vanish. That distinction matters, because history often speaks of lost civilizations when, in reality, many cultures simply adapted while their great cities faded into silence. Today, archaeologists continue uncovering astonishing discoveries beneath the rainforest. Hidden pyramids, royal tombs, sacred caves, painted murals preserved by darkness. Every excavation reveals another piece of a civilization whose intellectual achievements rival those of any ancient culture on Earth. Perhaps somewhere beneath the jungle still rests another library, another untouched temple, another inscription waiting to reveal a forgotten king or an unknown chapter of Maya history. The rainforest keeps its secrets patiently. Every fallen tree exposes another stone. Every season uncovers another doorway. Every expedition reminds us that history is far larger than the pages already written. The Maya looked toward the heavens not because they expected easy answers, but because they understood something timeless. The universe moves in cycles. Civilizations rise. Civilizations fall. Knowledge disappears, then returns. As our journey through Earth's oldest civilizations continues, one truth grows clearer with every forgotten city we uncover. The greatest mysteries are rarely those hidden by distance. They are hidden by time, waiting beneath forests, beneath deserts, beneath mountains, for the moment when humanity is finally ready to remember them once again. Long before the first Greek philosophers asked what the universe was made of, before Roman engineers raised aqueducts across Europe, before medieval scholars searched dusty libraries for forgotten wisdom, there existed a civilization that mastered astronomy, architecture, agriculture, and mathematics in one of the harshest environments on Earth. High in the Andes Mountains, where thin air tests every breath and towering peaks scrape the sky, an empire emerged whose achievements continue to puzzle archaeologists today. They moved stones weighing more than 100 tons without wheels or iron tools. They built cities that still withstand earthquakes better than many modern structures. And according to their own traditions, they inherited sacred knowledge from civilizations far older than themselves. This was the Inca Empire, perhaps the last great keeper of a much older legacy. At first glance, the Andes appear impossible. Steep mountains, frozen peaks, narrow valleys carved by ancient rivers. Few places seem less suited for building an empire. Yet sometime during the 13th century, a small kingdom centered around the city of Cusco began expanding across western South America. Within only a few generations, it controlled nearly 4,000 kilometers of territory. From modern Ecuador, across Peru, into Bolivia, northern Chile, and parts of Argentina. It became the largest empire ever established in the pre-Columbian Americas. But the Inca achieved this without something nearly every great civilization considered essential. They had no wheels for transportation, no horses, no oxen, no iron tools, no written alphabet. Still, they connected mountains with an engineering network that continues astonishing experts today. More than 40,000 kilometers of roads crossed some of the most difficult terrain on Earth. Stone stairways climbed nearly vertical cliffs. Suspension bridges woven from grass stretched across deep canyons. Way stations supplied travelers. Messengers ran relay routes capable of delivering information hundreds of kilometers within days. Even today, sections of these roads remain remarkably intact. Then there is their stonework. Walk through the ruins of Sacsayhuaman above Cusco, and one detail immediately captures attention: the walls. Massive stones fitted together so perfectly that even a knife blade cannot slide between them. No mortar, no cement. Only extraordinary precision. Some individual blocks weigh more than 100 tons. Many possess 12 or more carefully carved angles, allowing each stone to interlock with every neighbor like pieces of an enormous three-dimensional puzzle. What makes this achievement even more remarkable is its durability. Earthquakes frequently strike the Andes. Colonial buildings have collapsed repeatedly. Yet many Inca walls remain standing. Their slight inward lean and flexible joints allow the structures to absorb seismic energy without breaking apart. Modern engineers continue studying these techniques. Sometimes the oldest solutions remain among the most effective. The greatest symbol of Inca achievement rests high above the Urubamba River. Machu Picchu, hidden among cloud-covered mountains, forgotten by the outside world for centuries. Its terraces cling impossibly to steep slopes. Temples align with surrounding peaks. Windows frame specific points on the horizon where the sun rises during important times of year. the city appears less like something imposed upon nature and more like something grown from it. Archaeologists still debate its exact purpose: royal retreat, ceremonial center, astronomical observatory, perhaps all three. One structure continues attracting particular fascination: the Intihuatana stone. Its name is often translated as the hitching post of the sun. Carved directly from living bedrock, the monument casts carefully measured shadows throughout the year. During the equinoxes, the midday sun stands almost directly above it, producing almost no shadow at all. To the Inca, celestial movements governed agriculture, ceremony, and time itself. The heavens were not distant. They were woven into everyday life. Unlike civilizations that relied upon written records, the Inca developed another remarkable system: quipu, bundles of colored cords tied with carefully arranged knots. For centuries, scholars believed quipu recorded only numbers used for taxation or census records. Recent research suggests something far more sophisticated. Certain knot patterns may have encoded narratives, names, administrative information, perhaps even historical events. If true, countless Inca records may still survive, waiting only for humanity to rediscover how to read them. Then there are the agricultural terraces, thousands of stepped fields carved directly into mountain slopes, each carefully engineered to control erosion, conserve water, and create different growing environments. Some terraces remain productive after more than 500 years. The Inca transformed impossible landscapes into fertile farmland through observation, patience, and extraordinary engineering. Water itself held sacred importance. Canals carried crystal-clear mountain streams through cities with remarkable precision. At Machu Picchu, gravity alone distributes fresh water through a sequence of fountains still functioning today. Every channel follows carefully calculated gradients. Nothing appears accidental. Everything reflects careful planning. Yet perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Inca civilization lies not in what they built, but in what they claimed. According to their traditions, many sacred places already existed before the rise of the empire. The massive stones at Tiwanaku, ancient ceremonial centers across the Andes. The Inca regarded these places with profound respect. Rather than claiming authorship, they honored them as works inherited from earlier peoples. Some legends even spoke of builders from an age before the Great Flood. Whether symbolic or historical, these stories suggest the Inca saw themselves as guardians rather than originators of certain sacred knowledge. Then came tragedy. In the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors entered the Andes. Disease had already weakened the empire. Civil war divided its leadership. Firearms, steel weapons, and horses transformed the balance of power. Within only a few decades, one of the greatest civilizations in the Americas collapsed. Cities emptied. Temples were dismantled. Gold disappeared into European treasuries. Yet despite conquest, the mountains preserved many secrets. Remote settlements remained hidden. Sacred knowledge survived among local communities. Even today, archaeologists continue discovering previously unknown Inca sites concealed beneath forests and mountain ridges. Every expedition uncovers another road, another shrine, another terrace, another reminder that history is never truly finished. Modern satellite imaging and LiDAR technology have begun revealing entire landscapes invisible beneath dense vegetation. The story continues expanding with every passing year. Perhaps somewhere high among the clouds rests another untouched sanctuary, another library of knotted cords, another temple aligned to stars humanity has not yet learned to notice. Because civilizations do not simply leave behind monuments. They leave behind questions. Questions carved into mountains. Questions flowing through ancient canals. Questions locked within stones so perfectly joined they continue defying explanation. As our journey through Earth's oldest civilizations moves closer toward its final chapters, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Knowledge is rarely lost all at once. Sometimes it survives quietly, hidden within traditions, protected by mountains, remembered by descendants, waiting patiently until another generation is ready to understand what the last one tried so carefully to preserve. Before the first Viking ships crossed the northern seas, before Europe's great cathedrals reached toward heaven, before the first written histories described the frozen lands of the far north, an extraordinary culture flourished along the Arctic coast of modern Canada and Greenland. They hunted massive whales with astonishing precision, built entire communities from ice and stone, and somehow survived one of the harshest environments on Earth. Yet they vanished so completely that when later explorers arrived, only silent ruins remained. No final battle, no written farewell, no explanation. They became known as the Dorset people. One of the greatest disappearances in human history. The Arctic is a place that does not forgive mistakes. Winter stretches across most of the year. Temperatures plunge far below freezing. The sea itself becomes solid. For months, darkness blankets the land. To survive here demands more than strength. It demands knowledge passed carefully from one generation to the next. Thousands of years ago, long before European ships entered these waters, small groups of hunters mastered this impossible world. They followed migrating seals, tracked polar bears across drifting ice, hunted walrus and whales with remarkable skill. These people became what archaeologists now call the Dorset culture. For centuries, they flourished across enormous stretches of the Arctic, from the islands of northern Canada, across Baffin Island, into Greenland. Their world extended farther than most ancient civilizations could even imagine. Yet unlike the monumental cities of Egypt or Mesopotamia, the Dorset left behind something quieter. Stone rings marking ancient homes, carefully carved tools, ivory sculptures no larger than a human hand, tiny objects carrying extraordinary detail. Many depict animals, seals, owls, polar bears. Others portray mysterious human figures wearing elaborate masks. Some appear almost supernatural. Their faces are elongated, their eyes oversized, their expressions strangely emotionless. Archaeologists still debate what these figures represent. Ancestors, spiritual beings, shamans entering altered states of consciousness, or perhaps stories whose meanings disappeared long ago. One remarkable feature separates the Dorset from nearly every neighboring culture. For thousands of years, they never adopted the bow and arrow. Instead, they relied upon carefully crafted spears, harpoons, and blades designed specifically for Arctic hunting. Their equipment was astonishingly specialized. Every tool reflected generations of careful refinement. Bone, antler, stone, ivory. Nothing was wasted. Everything served a purpose. Even their lamps displayed remarkable ingenuity. Small bowls carved from soapstone burned seal oil using moss as wicks. These simple flames provided light, warmth, and the ability to melt snow for drinking water throughout the endless polar night. Entire families survived around these quiet circles of light while blizzards raged beyond their shelters. Then archaeologists noticed something curious. The Dorset appeared deeply connected to symbolism. Many carvings show animals transforming into humans, humans becoming bears, birds merging with spirits. Modern researchers believe these images reflect a worldview in which the boundary between humanity and nature remained fluid. Shamans may have served as intermediaries between physical life and the unseen world. In such an unforgiving environment, survival depended not only upon skill, but upon maintaining harmony with forces greater than oneself. Across abandoned settlements, another mystery emerged. Many homes contained carefully arranged objects left exactly where they had last been used. Tools, cooking stones, carved figurines. Everything appeared as though people intended to return, but they never did. There were no signs of violent destruction, no widespread evidence of warfare, no mass graves, only silence. Then, around AD 1200, another people entered the Arctic. The Thule, ancestors of today's Inuit. Unlike the Dorset, the Thule possessed dog sleds, large skin boats capable of hunting massive whales, powerful bows and arrows, more advanced transportation technologies. Within only a few centuries, the Dorset disappeared completely. What happened? One possibility suggests competition. As the climate shifted, hunting grounds changed. The Thule adapted more successfully. Gradually, they occupied territories once held by the Dorset. Another theory proposes peaceful assimilation. Small Dorset communities may simply have merged into expanding Thule populations. Yet genetic studies tell a different story. Modern DNA evidence indicates remarkably little mixing occurred between the two groups. Instead, it appears the Dorset truly vanished. Climate change likely played an important role. The medieval warm period altered Arctic sea ice. Animal migration routes shifted. Traditional hunting strategies became less reliable. For a people whose survival depended upon stable ice, even small environmental changes carried enormous consequences. Then came another fascinating discovery. Excavations in Greenland uncovered fragments of worked wood originating from forests hundreds of kilometers away. The Arctic itself contains almost no trees. These materials arrived through ocean currents or long-distance exchange. Even isolated Arctic cultures participated in surprisingly complex networks connecting distant regions. Nothing existed entirely alone. Perhaps the greatest mystery involves the final years. Imagine an aging hunter standing beside familiar sea ice that no longer behaves as it once did. Animals fail to appear. Weather patterns become unpredictable. Ancient knowledge passed through countless generations suddenly becomes less reliable. Not because the people forgot, but because the world itself changed. Entire ways of life can disappear without war, without conquest, simply because nature rewrites its own rules. Today, the abandoned Dorset settlements remain among the quietest archaeological sites on Earth. Wind blows across ancient stone circles. Snow covers forgotten camps. The Arctic protects what it buries. Cold preserves wood, bone, leather, and ivory for centuries. Every summer, melting ice reveals new discoveries. Every excavation adds another fragment to a story still missing its final chapter. Modern archaeologists continue uncovering beautifully carved masks unlike anything found elsewhere. Some faces appear almost dreamlike, others strangely familiar. Looking into their polished surfaces feels less like examining artifacts and more like meeting people whose names history forgot. Perhaps that is why the Dorset continue capturing the imagination. They remind us that civilizations need not build giant pyramids to leave lasting mysteries. Sometimes a tiny carving held in the palm of your hand carries just as much wonder as any monument of stone. Because history is measured not only by size, but by survival. As our journey through Earth's oldest civilizations draws closer to its conclusion, one lesson becomes impossible to ignore. The greatest threat to civilization is not always invasion. Sometimes it is change. Slow, silent, almost invisible, until one day an entire culture exists only in scattered artifacts beneath snow and ice. And somewhere beneath the frozen ground of the Arctic, another untouched campsite may still rest, its tools waiting beside an ancient lamp, as though the people who lit its flame only stepped away for a moment, still expecting to return, long before the first kingdoms rose along the Nile, before the pyramids pierced the desert sky, before written history gave names to kings and empires. There were people who dared to build in stone when much of humanity still wandered the earth as hunters. They carved massive pillars unlike anything their age should have been capable of creating. They aligned sacred structures with astonishing precision. Then, for reasons no one fully understands, they buried everything they had built beneath thousands of tons of earth, as though they wanted their civilization to disappear forever. Hidden for more than 10,000 years, their masterpiece would remain forgotten until a single farmer noticed an oddly shaped stone protruding from the soil. That discovery would force archaeologists to question everything they believed about the origins of civilization. This is the story of Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known monumental sanctuary on Earth, and perhaps the final memory of a world that existed before the great flood legends were ever spoken. The hills of southeastern Turkey appear ordinary. Dry grass bends beneath the wind. Wildflowers bloom between scattered limestone. Nothing about the landscape suggests that beneath its surface lies one of humanity's greatest archaeological discoveries. For generations, local shepherds walked across the hill without realizing they were standing atop an ancient monument older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, older than nearly every civilization recorded in history. In the 1990s, excavations began. What emerged stunned the archaeological world. Massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing over 20 tons, carefully arranged into enormous circular enclosures, each pillar carved with astonishing precision using only stone tools. The dates shocked everyone. Around 9600 BC, more than 11,000 years ago. At that point in history, conventional archaeology believed humanity lived in small bands of hunter-gatherers. Permanent cities had not yet appeared. Agriculture remained in its earliest stages. Metal tools did not exist. Pottery had not yet been invented. And yet here stood monumental architecture requiring thousands of workers, careful planning, skilled craftsmen, and generations of shared knowledge. Who organized such a project? How did they feed so many laborers? Why build something so enormous before farming became widespread? The questions continue multiplying. Walk among the towering pillars and another mystery emerges. They are not plain stones. Nearly every surface carries intricate carvings. Foxes, boars, lions, snakes, scorpions, vultures, wild bulls, birds, spiders. Creatures from every corner of the ancient landscape seem frozen in stone. Some appear peaceful, others threatening. Many are positioned as though moving around the circles themselves, almost watching, almost guarding. Several pillars even possess carved arms and hands. These are not merely supports for a roof. They represent enormous human-like figures standing silently around sacred space, faceless, timeless, watching across millennia. Some researchers believe these towering forms represent ancestors. Others suggest powerful spiritual beings. No one truly knows. One carving has attracted particular fascination. A large vulture holds what appears to be a human head. Throughout ancient cultures, vultures often symbolized the journey between life and death. Could Göbekli Tepe have served as a ceremonial center connected to burial rituals? Or do these images preserve beliefs whose meanings disappeared thousands of years before writing was invented? Unlike later temples, there is surprisingly little evidence people actually lived here. Few domestic structures. Very little everyday refuse. Instead, enormous quantities of animal bones indicate large communal feasts. Thousands of gazelle, wild cattle, deer, boar. Perhaps groups traveled from distant regions to gather here for seasonal ceremonies. If true, Göbekli Tepe may have united scattered communities long before cities existed. Some archaeologists propose an astonishing possibility. Perhaps religion came before civilization. Perhaps the desire to gather for shared beliefs encouraged people to settle, cooperate, and eventually develop agriculture. Instead of farming, creating temples. Temples may have inspired farming. If so, one sacred hill helped change human history forever. Then comes the greatest mystery of all. After centuries of use, the builders deliberately buried the entire complex. Not abandoned, buried. Every enclosure carefully filled with earth, broken tools, animal bones, and debris. Thousands upon thousands of cubic meters of material. An unimaginable amount of labor. They did not destroy the monuments. They protected them. Why? Were they preserving sacred ground? Ending an era? Preparing for catastrophe? Or hiding knowledge they believed should sleep beneath the earth? No written record survives to answer. Only silence. Modern technology continues revealing new surprises. Ground-penetrating radar indicates most of the site remains unexcavated. Dozens of additional circles still rest beneath the hill. What has already been uncovered represents only a small fraction of the ancient sanctuary. Every season, archaeologists expose another carved pillar. Another mysterious relief. Another question without an answer. Some researchers compare Göbekli Tepe with flood traditions found across ancient cultures. The timing roughly coincides with the dramatic climate shifts marking the end of the last ice age. Melting glaciers transformed coastlines. Sea levels rose. Entire landscapes disappeared beneath water. Communities witnessed environmental change on an unimaginable scale. Could memories of those events have survived, as the flood legends echoed later through Mesopotamian, biblical, and countless other traditions? We cannot say with certainty, but the possibility lingers. Standing among those ancient stones today creates an unusual feeling. The carvings are older than recorded history itself. The hands that shaped them vanished thousands of generations ago. Their language is lost, their names forgotten, yet their work remains, patiently waiting beneath the same sky, waiting for another generation willing to ask impossible questions. Göbekli Tepe reminds us that history is not a straight line climbing steadily toward progress. Knowledge can appear, disappear, then appear again. Entire chapters of humanity's story may still lie hidden beneath fields, deserts, forests, and oceans. We often believe we stand at the beginning of civilization, but perhaps we stand somewhere in the middle, looking backward through only a narrow window while countless forgotten worlds remain buried beyond our sight. As our journey through Earth's oldest civilizations approaches its final chapters, one realization becomes impossible to escape. The deeper archaeologists dig, the older humanity's mysteries become. And somewhere beneath untouched layers of stone and soil, another monument may already be waiting, not to rewrite history, but to reveal that history was always far older, far stranger, and far more mysterious than we ever imagined. Before history learned to write, before empires carved their victories into stone, before maps divided the earth into kingdoms and nations, there was a civilization whose influence stretched farther than almost any other in the ancient world. Its merchants crossed seas that terrified later sailors. Its engineers created cities with running water, paved streets, and astonishing sanitation, while much of humanity still lived in scattered villages. Then, almost without warning, the cities emptied. Streets fell silent. Wells dried. Doors remained open. It was not a sudden catastrophe, but something slower, quieter. A disappearance so complete that thousands of years later, archaeologists still struggle to explain why one of the greatest civilizations on Earth simply faded away. This was the Indus Valley Civilization. Perhaps the closest humanity ever came to creating a perfectly organized ancient world. And perhaps the greatest mystery of them all. Across the fertile plains, fed by the mighty Indus River, civilization emerged with remarkable confidence. By around 2600 BC, enormous cities had already begun rising across what is now Pakistan and northwestern India. Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dholavira, Lothal, Ganeriwala. Hundreds of settlements connected through trade, agriculture, and engineering unlike anything seen before. Unlike many ancient kingdoms, there is almost no evidence of giant palaces dominating the skyline. No towering monuments celebrating kings. No colossal statues demanding worship. Instead, something far more surprising appears. Order everywhere. The streets follow carefully planned grids. Wide roads intersect at nearly perfect right angles. Residential neighborhoods are arranged with astonishing consistency. Brick sizes remain standardized across cities separated by hundreds of kilometers. It is as though an invisible blueprint guided every builder. Walk through the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro today, and one feature stands above all others: water. Nearly every house possessed access to fresh water. Private bathing areas, covered drainage systems, underground sewers. Wastewater flowed through carefully engineered channels beneath the streets. Even many modern cities struggled to achieve sanitation of this quality until relatively recent centuries. More than 4,000 years ago, these people understood that clean water meant healthy communities. Then there are the bricks themselves. Uniform, precisely fired, nearly identical proportions repeated across an enormous civilization. Such standardization suggests remarkable coordination. Someone established measurements. Someone enforced them. Yet who? That question remains unanswered. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, no obvious royal tombs have ever been discovered. No grand inscriptions praising rulers. No lists of conquering kings. It is almost as though power existed, but deliberately avoided displaying itself. Perhaps authority rested with councils, priests, merchants, or some completely different system history has forgotten. The greatest mystery may lie within objects small enough to fit into the palm of your hand. Tiny carved seals. Thousands have been recovered. Each bears extraordinary craftsmanship. Powerful bulls, elephants, rhinoceroses, tigers, strange mythical creatures unlike any known animal. Above them sits a line of symbols, short, elegant, repeating across hundreds of examples. This is the Indus script. More than 4,000 years later, no one can read it. Linguists, mathematicians, computer scientists, artificial intelligence, all have attempted to unlock its meaning. None have succeeded. Without understanding these symbols, the voices of an entire civilization remain silent. Imagine discovering every modern library, yet being unable to recognize even a single letter. That is the challenge facing archaeologists today. One famous seal depicts an unusual seated figure, cross-legged, surrounded by wild animals. Some scholars believe it represents an early spiritual leader. Others see connections to later religious traditions. Still others warn that we simply do not know. Without readable texts, every interpretation remains uncertain. Trade connected the Indus people to distant civilizations. Artifacts from Mesopotamia mention merchants arriving from a mysterious land called Meluha. Many researchers believe Meluha referred to the Indus world. Ships likely carried timber, precious stones, metals, cotton textiles. Exotic goods traveled across the Arabian Sea thousands of years before the great maritime empires of later history. Lothal, one of their coastal cities, contains what many believe to be one of the world's earliest carefully engineered dockyards. Its basin suggests advanced understanding of tides and maritime commerce. These were not isolated settlements. They belonged to a civilization deeply connected to the wider ancient world. Then, something changed. Around 1900 BC, the great cities began declining. Construction slowed. Trade diminished. Neighborhoods emptied. Brick quality became inconsistent. Public buildings received fewer repairs. Generation after generation, the civilization quietly unraveled. Curiously, there is little evidence of massive warfare. No widespread destruction layers. No cities burned simultaneously. Instead, the decline appears gradual. Some researchers point toward climate change. Ancient river systems shifted course. The mighty Ghaggar-Hakra River may have weakened or disappeared entirely. Agriculture became increasingly difficult. Others suggest repeated droughts slowly undermined urban life. Still others propose changing trade networks weakened economic stability. Perhaps no single disaster ended the civilization. Perhaps dozens of small problems accumulated until maintaining enormous cities simply became impossible. Families left. Communities scattered. Urban life dissolved into smaller villages. The civilization did not vanish overnight. It slowly transformed into something different. Yet its legacy endured. Standardized weights, craftsmanship, agricultural practices, urban planning. Ideas rarely disappear completely. They evolve, flowing quietly beneath history like underground rivers. Even today, excavations continue revealing astonishing discoveries. New settlements emerge beneath farmland, ancient workshops, storage facilities, neighborhoods preserved beneath centuries of soil. Ground-penetrating radar hints that countless ruins still remain undiscovered. Each excavation raises another question, another fragment of a language still unread, another reminder that humanity's oldest chapters remain incomplete. Standing among the silent streets of Mohenjo-Daro creates an unusual feeling. The city feels strangely modern, orderly, practical, designed not to glorify rulers, but to serve ordinary people. Perhaps that is why its disappearance feels so haunting, because it proves even the most carefully organized civilization can slowly fade into silence, not through sudden catastrophe, but through time itself. As our journey through Earth's oldest civilizations nears its final destination, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The greatest mysteries are not always hidden beneath pyramids or sealed tombs. Sometimes they lie within ordinary streets, empty houses, silent wells, and a language waiting patiently for the day humanity finally learns how to listen, long before the first city raised its walls, before kings carved their names into stone, before history divided truth from legend. People looked into the darkness of the past and asked a question that still refuses to disappear. Who came before us? Every generation believed it stood at the beginning of civilization, only to uncover ruins proving someone had walked those same lands thousands of years earlier. And with every discovery, the mystery only deepened. Because beneath our oldest monuments lie even older foundations. Beneath those foundations lie forgotten worlds. And beneath them, perhaps civilizations whose names have been erased so completely that only fragments remain. Tonight, as our journey reaches its end, we are left with one unavoidable realization. History is not a complete book. It is a handful of surviving pages torn from a library that no longer exists. Over the course of this journey, we have crossed continents and thousands of years. We stood among forgotten temples buried beneath hills, walked through silent cities reclaimed by deserts, looked upon monuments that refused to fit comfortably within accepted timelines. We followed mysterious carvings, untranslated scripts, impossible architecture, ancient observatories, strange artifacts, and civilizations that appeared brilliant, only to vanish without explanation. Each discovery challenged a single comforting belief, that humanity's story is complete. But perhaps, It has only just begun. Every civilization believed it understood the past. The Egyptians looked back toward gods who ruled before kings. The Sumerians described rulers whose reigns stretched across impossible spans of time. The Maya measured cycles reaching far beyond recorded history. The Greeks spoke of lost golden ages. The Hindus described civilizations destroyed and reborn through endless cosmic cycles. Nearly every ancient culture preserved memories of worlds that existed before their own. Different languages, different religions, different continents, yet strangely similar stories. Floods, fire, sky beings, forgotten teachers, lost knowledge, entire worlds swallowed by time. Were they merely myths? Perhaps. But myths often preserve echoes of real events. Not perfectly, not literally, but like reflections seen through moving water, distorted, yet still connected to something real. Modern archaeology continues forcing us to reconsider what we think we know. Every year, new discoveries rewrite timelines once considered certain. Ancient DNA reveals forgotten migrations. Satellite imaging uncovers buried cities beneath forests and deserts. LiDAR strips away jungles to expose enormous civilizations hidden for centuries. Ground-penetrating radar detects structures still waiting beneath the earth. The deeper we search, the older civilization becomes. Questions once dismissed now return with unexpected force. How much knowledge has disappeared? How many libraries burned? How many languages vanished without leaving descendants? How many inventions were lost, only to be rediscovered thousands of years later? History often celebrates invention, but perhaps rediscovery deserves equal attention. Knowledge does not always move forward. Sometimes it disappears. Sometimes civilizations forget what earlier generations already understood. The Bronze Age collapsed. The Roman world fragmented. The Maya abandoned great cities. The Indus civilization faded. The Inca fell. Again and again, human achievement rises and falls. Progress is not a straight line. It is a tide, always advancing, always retreating. There is something deeply humbling about that thought. We often imagine ourselves standing at the peak of history, the most advanced generation, the final chapter. Yet every civilization before us believed something similar. The Romans could not imagine their empire disappearing. The Egyptians believed their monuments would preserve eternal order. The Maya measured time across thousands of years. The builders of Göbekli Tepe buried monuments they may have believed would sleep forever. Every age believes it understands permanence. Time quietly proves otherwise. Imagine someone living 10,000 years from now. If humanity still exists, what would they discover beneath our cities? Glass fused into strange minerals, fragments of satellites, rusting steel, collapsed tunnels, broken computers whose purpose no one remembers. Would they understand us completely? Or would they build theories? Argue. Disagree. Just as we do today? Perhaps they would mistake ordinary objects for sacred artifacts. Perhaps our greatest achievements would become mysterious relics stripped of context. Perhaps they too would wonder, who came before us? That question never truly ends. It simply changes direction. There is another lesson hidden within these forgotten civilizations. Curiosity. Every culture we explored looked upward, toward the stars, toward the heavens, toward mysteries beyond immediate survival. They observed eclipses, measured seasons, tracked planets, built monuments aligned with solstices and equinoxes. Even without telescopes, without satellites, without modern science, they looked beyond themselves. Perhaps that impulse, to wonder, is humanity's oldest inheritance. Not stone, not gold, not kingdoms. Wonder. The desire to ask questions, whose answers may never fully arrive. And maybe that is why ancient ruins affect us so deeply. Not because they prove extraordinary theories, but because they remind us how much remains unknown. Mystery is uncomfortable, yet it is also necessary. Without mystery, there would be no exploration, no archaeology, no astronomy, no science, no discovery. Every answer begins with someone willing to admit, "I don't know." Perhaps somewhere beneath the sands of the Sahara, another city sleeps. Perhaps beneath Antarctic ice rests evidence of forgotten climates. Perhaps beneath the Pacific Ocean lie coastlines flooded at the end of the last ice age. Perhaps tomorrow's greatest archaeological discovery already exists beneath a farmer's field, a mountain, a jungle, or beneath the streets of a modern city where millions walk every day without realizing history rests only meters below their feet. The Earth still guards countless secrets, and it has proven remarkably patient. Some mysteries waited thousands of years before allowing themselves to be found. Others may wait thousands more. As our journey finally comes to an end, remember this: the greatest mystery was never whether ancient civilizations possessed forgotten technology, or hidden knowledge, or impossible architecture. The greatest mystery is far simpler. How much of our own story has already been lost? How many names disappeared? How many dreams ended without record? How many ordinary people built extraordinary things, only to become anonymous beneath the passing centuries? History remembers monuments. Time remembers everything. And somewhere tonight, beneath desert sands, frozen tundra, mountain valleys, dense forests, or deep beneath the sea, another forgotten civilization waits in perfect silence, its streets untouched, its temples sealed, its stories unread, waiting for the moment someone brushes away the first handful of earth and changes everything we thought we knew once again. So the next time you look at an ancient ruin, or hold an old stone, or gaze into the night sky, remember this: you are not standing at the end of history. You are standing in the middle of it, surrounded by echoes of worlds that came before, and mysteries that still lie ahead. Because civilizations may fall, empires may vanish, languages may disappear, but humanity's search for the truth never ends. Which civilization changed what you thought you knew? Tell us in the comments. And if you made it to the end, you already know this channel is for you. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. The next video takes you somewhere even more hidden.